All right. We good.
Are we recording?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killing, pre-cold villains on the mic, got you reeling. 5-star rating from the floor to the ceiling. If you catch a 1-star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ on the ones and twos, by the name Beelzebub, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all over two, and prepare to hear the legend of the straight chillin' crew.
What up, nerds? Welcome to another embalmed episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name is Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 317, recorded on Wednesday, May 5th, 2021, also known as Cinco de Mayo. Tonight, we're going to be talking about yet another Patreon pick. This one was chosen by Alice. The movie is The Mummy from 1999. Incorrect soundbite, Randy, but thank you anyways. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy on the ones and twos, Randy Gandy G. Landy. What's up, man?
That's all I have to say.
As wrong as that is, I appreciate that bump has lasted for like 3 years now. Like
It's time to pull her out of retirement.
Four years now.
I want to say on the record that is definitely the best thing to come out of that film.
I agree, and I think pretty much the entire world would agree. It's how embarrassing is it for you as Tom Cruise to know that you tanked an entire cinematic universe before it even had a chance to start? Like,
oh, it was a team effort to tank that bitch.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess that's a fair point. That's a fair point. But, you know, he was the face of it. Last but not least, calling in from Jacksonville, Florida, we got our boy Soju. What's up, man?
What up? It's your boy Soju Moonstains, ready to talk Egypt.
Soju the Moon?
The Moon?
Soju Moon, like Noxuna Moon, but with Soju at the beginning.
I don't know what that is.
The character in this film.
Maybe I'm not hearing it right. All I know is Imhotep. Who are you talking about?
I think it's his bride, Noxuna, the queen who kills the king, the pharaoh.
There's no way I'm remembering that.
Ankh-Su-Namun.
Oh, Ankh-Su-Namun.
I'll sue the moon.
Soju straight to the moon, y'all. Yay! Tight. Let's talk.
Great intro.
Let's talk about some.
This is what 3 days
mummies.
of delaying this podcast gets you. It's just a fucking scattershot blast to the face.
You're welcome, one and all. Before we get into the main event, let's tackle some housekeeping real quick. So we got our June poll pick currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're going to be talking about this June. The theme for June is vehicular manslaughter, and the 3 movies you can vote between are Christine, Joyride, and Rubber.
Bob, how are those numbers looking so far?
They're looking very tight.
Whoa.
I was getting that impression on the Slack. Everybody who was chiming in for a different film, seemed like.
Yeah.
So breaking the mold.
Breaking it down. Rubber is in the lead, but Christine and Joyride are like maybe 1 or 2 votes behind. Like they're all sort of neck and neck and neck.
So fascinating. I did not expect Rubber to do as well as that.
Yeah. So make sure you get your votes in before the end of May. We'll see who the victor is and what we're going to be talking about this June.
Yes.
In other Patreon news, we have not 1, but we have 2 brand new Patreon supporters we got to give mad shouts outs to.
Hell yeah.
Big thanks to Catalin and John C. for signing up and showing us some love on Patreon.
Wow.
Every dollar you guys contribute goes right back into the show, and it helps us keep the lights on around here. We greatly appreciate it. We really do. And as is tradition around these parts, we owe y'all the straight chilling salute. This one's for Catalin and for John.
Slap my ass.
Oh, wait.
Oh, God, slap me in the ass.
That's a lot of ass slapping right there.
Gotta double down.
That's what we love
Beat
to
red
see.
tonight.
Yeah.
We love to see it. Juice, you got some YouTube news, don't you?
I do. So yesterday was Top 5 Tuesday. First Tuesday of every month, we drop a brand new YouTube video that is a top 5 countdown list. This time I did top 5 thrillers. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for coming through.
You're welcome.
So that is up on our YouTube page. That's youtube.com/straight chilling podcast. Also, Bob, I think since last time we casted, the last poll pick closed and you didn't announce who the winner of that one was, and that was your takeover month.
Oh yeah, I got all messed up. We got delayed. I couldn't remember if I said that on the last show or not.
I
But
don't
yeah,
think so.
yeah, you're right. My B.
What the fuck is it?
Tell us.
The winner of the May poll pick is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. We'll be talking about it next episode. Actually, we're gonna jump right into it, talking about some weird ass aliens, cotton candy, all that good shit.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, other than the new top 5 video, I think my house is clean.
Tight. I want to say big thanks to everybody that hung out with us this past Friday for our Joe Bob watch party. It's something that we do every Friday. Joe Bob shows a double feature. We'll drop a link on all of our social media outlets for a Zoom watch party, and I'll stream the event there, and then everybody gets in the chat, and it's a really good time. Last week showed Bride of Reanimator and Next of Kin. As always, we don't know what he's showing this Friday, but if you are interested in hanging out with us, just keep your eyes on our social media just before 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'll drop that invite. Also,
Invite
spooky.
only.
It's no,
Yeah.
negative. It's pretty open. Unless you're a porn bot,
VIP.
then you're not allowed. Fucking porn bots. Juice.
We're sex
you-
positive, but please.
Yeah, until you fucking ruin my stream, and then nah. Juice, you and I went to Spooky Empire in Orlando this past weekend.
We did. It was my first time at Spooky Empire. Bob, you're a veteran at this point. And it was nice to go to an event after this past year that we've kind of had where everybody's not doing anything. So it was nice to see people out in their costumes and see all the booths out there. And we had a good time. We met up with a lot of the kids from Something Ghoulish. And Mikey from Let's Get Physical Media was with us. And we met up with Michael from Horror Apocalypse. So nice.
Yeah.
Horror podcast community was showing up. If you follow us on Instagram, I was keeping y'all updated with all the blue purchasing that was going on. I finally documented it, so you can keep an eye out for that on the YouTubes, and you'll see what kind of shady shit was going down in the blue business.
You got intimate with Mikey's wheeling and dealing. Like he was working some people over pretty hard, and we got some movies for sure we'll be talking about on the next episode of
Beat
Let's Get
wholesale
Physical
ass
Media.
while you were down.
Mikey,
Were you guys enforcers for a fucking cartel of DVD and Blu-ray?
They didn't even have all the normal. They didn't have all the normal blue booths up. It was just a handful, and these boys still found a way to get in there, get their deals. So and now I know when Bob says what, it was cheap. It was on sale. Mikey got me a good deal. I actually know what that good deal is.
You don't know what you're talking about. That's but a glimpse into what happens.
But a glimpse. My God.
It was
not of which you speak.
It was a good time seeing everybody this weekend. We made it out to Cocktails and Screams, which is a Halloween themed bar in Orlando after the event. And that was a lot of fun as well.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
that's a cool place.
Just being out and about, having some
yours,
funky
Bob.
drinks. It could have been, I know.
Yeah.
Could have
been mine. But yeah,
that's a good deal.
Thanks for chilling, squad, and hopefully we'll see some of y'all out there again at the October convention. That's all we got. I think our houses are collectively clean.
This house is clean.
let's go ahead and get into the main event. We're talking about The Mummy, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Bob, you got that box?
I do, yeah. I got
Ramen Ra cover or whatever, or some shit like that.
Dude, that would be sick.
I got the Mummy box set, Ultimate Collection.
But it doesn't look like the Book of the Dead.
No, it doesn't. It just looks like a nice little collection.
One
of
more
movies.
thing Evil Dead has over these movies.
Sorry. Yeah, this is The Mummy from 1999. This was written and directed by Stephen Sommers, starring Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz, John Hannah, and some other folks. Plot synopsis is as follows. Embark on the ultimate action adventure that spans continents and explores ancient history with The Mummy Ultimate Collection, including the films The Mummy Returns, The Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, and Scorpion King. Follow the exhilarating journeys and exploits of daring explorer Rick O'Connell and his family as they combat the evil undead from the dusty tombs of ancient Egypt to the hidden catacombs of China. Filled with amazing special effects and breathtaking battles, it's a passport to spellbinding entertainment you can watch again and again.
I know.
Totally.
That really keeled over George.
I'm just reading what's on the back of the box.
That is also a back of the box specific to the whole series. The whole
It is, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I'll
Diligence done.
I'll do the proper synopsis whenever we
Yeah,
drop
there's
spoiler warning.
there's
on
no
that.
China in this one.
It's
No,
on the back
definitely
of the
not.
goddamn box.
I've read the
Can't be
back
held liable.
of the box. That's what the segment is called.
Spoiler for all three movies, apparently.
That's right.
Wait,
We're
is-
doing them all.
Is Scorpion King included in this one?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, all four films.
Scorpion
like-
King.
There's like a couple of Scorpion King movies though, aren't there?
No, just the one.
No, I think they're.
No. I think there are like
I think
some
there's three.
DVD or something.
I think they
Yeah,
made
geez.
two
I
really.
didn't
short
realize
sequels.
that.
It warrants that response.
Yeah, do a quick googe, just double check.
Alright.
But I think there are two sequels. Anyway, gentlemen, let's kick this off as we always do. Have you seen this movie before, and would you recommend people check it out, Randy?
Yes, I saw this in theaters and maybe one other time since then. I don't know how much I've talked to you guys about this over the years. I feel like we've talked about it, but this movie to me has always occupied the space in my head very much in the negative category. I did not particularly like this movie growing up. When I saw it in theaters, I was mostly bored. And which is really bizarre because at the time when this movie came out, I liked Brendan Fraser quite a bit, and I still kind of like him in general. I think he's pretty good as a comedic actor. I really love Encino Man. I'm blanking on other movies right now. But,
George of the Jungle.
well, I did not see that one. No, was that him? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Dudley Do Right also. He did all the Bullwinkle side projects.
Yeah.
Bedazzled.
Bedazzled. I actually really liked Bedazzled growing up, which there was no reason for me to like that. but I
Elizabeth
did.
Hurley.
He did
Okay,
Monkey
yeah,
Bone.
That's a good point.
Uh-huh.
Actually, yeah, Monkey Bone is a sourpuss for sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
I always feel like though he's the kind of dude who seems like an approachable guy. He seems genial. He
Yeah.
doesn't seem like he's not like fucking. He's not Willem Dafoe. He's not scary. He's a very approachable seeming guy that you can get a beer with, which means he earns my vote. But yeah, I saw this movie as a kid, didn't like it very much, and watched it again. I would recommend it if you're from this era. I would not recommend it generally though.
All right, Juice. What about you?
Yeah, I had seen this many times. I was on the opposite end of that spectrum. I love this movie. I love the sequel too. I never saw the third one. And actually, I didn't mind the Scorpion King too much at the time when it was out. But there are 3 Scorpion King movies.
Damn.
The third one stars Billy Zane and Ron Perlman and came out
Wow.
2012.
That's redundant. The Imhotep in this movie is basically Billy Zane
He
dollar store
is.
Yeah, he
edition.
really
He
is.
looks like fucking Billy Zane. You're right.
He really does. But yeah, it's there's 3 of them: 2002, 2008, 2012. Whatever. Anyways, so I actually like this franchise in general. I think it's a fun movie. It's a kind of movie that doesn't seem to get made a lot these days. And it's obviously pulls a lot from things like Indiana Jones. It's got this action / comedy
It's
/
Alan
horror.
Quartermain thing going. It's very
Yeah.
much.
It's
yeah.
PG-13. It was a blockbuster for the time. I actually like it because I think it blends all three genres really well, which I'll talk about later. And I think it's a movie where like kids can watch it and have a good time. I think adults can watch it without kids and have a good time with it. I think there's a good blend of that somewhere of who can watch it. I don't know. I think it's fun, and I like Brendan Fraser, and I would recommend. If you've never seen this, I would recommend you check it out. Bob,
Yo.
had you seen it? Would you recommend?
Yeah, I saw this in the movie theater when I was growing up. I saw the sequel in the theater too, and I never saw anything past that. But I
I've seen
recall
more of these movies than you guys.
apparently.
Which you've seen all four?
I'm pretty sure I've seen all four. The Scorpion King was very much like I'm not paying that much attention because I'm at a friend's house.
Okay.
Mm.
I've seen all four, I think.
Gotcha.
I remember liking these quite a bit as a kid, and it'd been several years until this year since I saw it again, and I like it quite a bit. It's like it's a fun little romp. It's light on the horror, but I mean, I say that as an adult, but when I was a kid, I remember seeing scenes that like really did terrify me. So PG-13 movie, if you're a 13-year-old, it might still get under your skin, pun intended. But like Brendan Fraser has like a shitload. He's got a shitload of
It's my
charm.
PG-13 scream.
Thank you. He's got a shitload of charm, and like this movie delivers on the action. It's got a little bit of horror going on for it, and it's like it's sort of like a subgenre of horror movie, like this action adventure horror that Justin said. We don't get a whole lot like anymore. I mean, they obviously tried to reboot this again with Tom Cruise a few years ago, and it just didn't work out at all. It lacked the charm. This movie has a lot of charm. It really does, and I think a lot of that's thanks to Brendan Fraser. The cast as a whole, which we'll talk about, but definitely Brendan Fraser, the leading man. I enjoyed this as a kid. I enjoy it as an adult, and I think I would generally just recommend this. It's pretty damn palatable. So if you haven't seen it, slam your eyeballs into it. Decent recommend from the Straight Chilling crew. Without, yeah, you got something else?
My recommendation. When I said I wouldn't recommend it generally, I was thinking specifically in the horror realm. But yeah.
Oh yeah.
I said general audiences, but in actual terms, general audiences of like people the age we were when this movie came out, like, and their parents could have a great time with this movie, I'm sure. So
Is it pronounced Rachel Weisz?
I don't
With
know.
like a
Weisz.
visa?
I think,
Yeah.
It's spelled with a W, but when Rob said it, and then when you pull it up, actually on Wikipedia, it got me curious. It has like, look, Bob, with the
How does
V,
this-
it's got like a V.
Yeah, it is the way that
It says VYSE. Yeah, like
says
to
say it is
pronounce.
Vice. Yeah. So Vice.
Either way, so Rachel Weisz or Rachel Weisz, we'll know who you're talking about. I just like it got me curious. I was like, wait a second.
Rachel has a vice. Let's go ahead and drop that spoiler warning, and we'll get into the rest of the movie. Here we go.
Rachel Weisz.
that's what Google says.
Okay.
Rachel Weisz.
All right, there we go.
What's on the back
Oh,
of
no.
the box?
Oh no. Oh no.
See what happens when you try to correct Wikipedia? You fuck up.
That's what happens when I try and answer your dumbass questions for you.
Spoiler warning.
Alrighty.
Bob, you got that plot synopsis ready?
I do. I got it typed up. I'll blast
Woo.
through it real quick.
Laminated.
Laminated. I'm gonna mail it out to all the Patreon supporters. A nice laminated.
Don't promise
copy.
that, Bob.
Let's not promise
There's too
things
many.
in general.
Randy's gonna mail them out to all of you. All right, the movie opens up in ancient Egypt, where High Priest Imhotep murders the pharaoh, so he and the pharaoh's mistress can finally be together. Imhotep is then forced to flee the city, and the mistress ends up committing suicide. Imhotep and his priests steal her body and take it to the ancient burial city of Hamunaptra, where they plan to resurrect her. The ritual is interrupted by the pharaoh's bodyguards, and Imhotep is then mummified while alive. Flash forward to 1926, where we meet siblings Jonathan and Evelyn Carnahan. Jonathan shows Evie, his sister, an ancient box and a map that leads to the city of Hamunaptra. Jonathan stole the map from Rick O'Connell, who discovered the city while working with the French Foreign Legion. Jonathan and Evelyn barter for Rick's life with the warden, who agrees to let him go so he can lead them all to Hamunaptra. The four strike out on a journey and encounter a group of American treasure hunters led by Rick's acquaintance, Benny. The Americans discover the Book of the Dead when they arrive to Hamunaptra, and Evelyn reads from it, resurrecting Imhotep. The search party hauls ass back to Cairo, being followed by Imhotep and Benny. Imhotep eventually returns to full strength after sucking many of the American souls and bringing the 10 plagues back to Egypt. Evelyn deduces the Book of Amun-Ra can kill Imhotep. She then gets abducted by Imhotep and taken back to Hamunaptra. Rick, Jonathan, and Ardith locate the book and save Evelyn from being sacrificed. Evelyn then reads from the Book of Amun-Ra, making Imhotep mortal and allowing him to be fatally wounded. Yet he, of course, vows his revenge. Benny is then killed, allowing Rick, Jonathan, and Evelyn to ride off into the sunset with the treasure he stole. That's the movie. Roll credits.
Sucking those souls down.
I felt exactly the same listening to you recite that as I did waiting for this movie to end.
Oh, really?
It is a
Damn.
2-hour runtime. It's a little
that's
long
a
in the
little
tooth.
long.
And it does,
This-
like, I don't have a lot of problems with this movie, but one of my big problems is the back and forth between Cairo and Hamunaptra. They just keep
Oh my
going
God,
back and
dude.
forth between the two cities, and it gets, like,
That's
a
fair.
little boring watching them do that, I guess.
Dude, that's the whole fucking movie for a
Yeah.
large portion of this movie. It's not just between those cities, it's just constant moving point A to point B, which, I mean, in fairness, I mean, that's in the tradition of the adventure film, right? So, like, going from place to place, exotic locale to exotic
Mhm.
locale. The problem is that they're going to the same exotic locale over and over and over again.
And it all
So-
kind of looks the same because they are in the
Yeah.
desert and it doesn't change a whole lot of like there's no oasis really or it all the
There's
only
an
time I
ancient rubble,
remember it
and then there's Cairo.
yeah, the only time I remember it looking kind of different is I think it's at night, maybe one time in Cairo, or the sun gets blotted out or something. That's
The ship
a
was
good-
a unique spot, I
that's
guess.
true.
But
Yeah, like on the
that's-
Nile.
That ship served. I don't understand the ship aspect of it, and in general, I'm like thinking of it right now. Why did they need to take the ship there?
Quicker.
Okay, it seemed like they got there without that the first time, but maybe I'm.
Yeah.
We didn't see him get there the first time.
I guess that's true. You know what? You're right. You're right.
They were
We
just
just kinda
because
showed
the
up
army
there,
was
right?
just there. Yeah.
And I guess the
Right,
second time
yeah.
they take a plane.
yeah.
Which-
so-
Which army was Brendan Fraser fighting with?
it was like the British or something.
It seems like the
except
colonial
nobody was
British, but nobody was British.
Yeah, that's a
He's
good
very-
question.
Very American.
Yeah. He was with the French. It's all a bit
Yeah,
gray.
a little
It
loose.
doesn't necessarily matter to the plot. We just need like to get to Brendan Fraser. Like
Well, yeah,
They-
he
they
did
coulda
it
cleared it up.
as he's committing a colonialism.
Well, the only reason I said wasn't it like a big thing, especially the inspired things like the original Mummy film, where
Mhm.
British like colonialism and like people go in there like
Yeah.
on vacations and like buying mummies in the street and shit like that. Wasn't that like that was the thing, right?
Well, I don't know about buying mummies, but certainly like
I think so.
Tutankhamun, like in the. I mean, maybe you're right. I don't know I don't know if that's true,
I
but
think, yeah.
or at least like some. I'm sure there was touristy things like I can buy Bigfoot keychains right around pretty much any corner in the.
I
Pacific
legit
Northwest.
think
It's
there's
that
like
same
a
sort of thing, I feel
famous
like.
photo that it gotten so popular that like grave
What's
robbers would
Tutankhamun?
buy and like sell mummies like in the street.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you're right.
I'll
But
get
like
up.
all I know is that when the 20s, when Tutankhamun was found, that just opened up the whole Middle Eastern, especially Egypt area for Egyptology and all that stuff. It became like a national interest thing, which is why they made the original mummy in the first place. And this is just building off that and placed in that era. So colonialism is a huge part of that because it was Westerners appearing in Egyptian areas and stealing all the trinkets they found or whatever. So it's all. I mean, it's very much of that time, but because this movie is like a crowd-pleasing blockbuster set in made in 1999, they don't spend any time sort of like, with the geopolitical nature of that or whatever. Which is
Yeah.
movie's benefit, I'm sure, but
I think so too. Yeah, it's not that kind of movie. Now, one thing Bob said is this movie has a lot of charm, and Brendan Fraser carries a lot of that. I agree, but I think just overall, except for the red shirts who are just there to die,
The Americans.
yeah, the cast
Yeah.
does a great job. Evie and Jonathan, I
Mhm.
think, have great like brother sister banter. It feels legit to me, and I like how they both are educated a little bit in ancient Egyptian, like based on their parents trade and stuff, and them being scholars. And it feels like he's kind of the disappointment, but he's still got that education. He's a goofball. She takes it more seriously, but she's uptight. I don't know, I liked that charm of it. It felt at least pretty
Very
authentic.
typical.
Yeah, they did a good job with it, I felt like. And even the warden is perfectly appropriately like obnoxious. I don't know. Everybody just kind of fits the roles really well. And even the red shirts, like, yeah, they die, but you still feel for them in a way. Like you see their fear. And
I wanted to talk
Develop.
about the warden and Benny, actually.
oh yeah, and Benny
There's
got
sort
him.
of-
Benny, Jesus.
The warden and Benny are almost like B-string villains in this movie. They're not like Emotep, obviously,
Yeah,
but like they have
Oh
this.
yeah, they're the yeah. Go
they
ahead.
might be
They,
cooters.
they have this like cartoonish quality to them, and a lot of scenes in the movie feel very cartoonish, but those two specifically, like as soon as you see them on screen, they reminded me of villains that you might see in like a Scooby-Doo cartoon. Like they're like somewhat menacing, but like not really. You don't take them that seriously, even though they
Well,
pose
yeah,
somewhat
so-
of a
Well, they're
threat.
comic relief more than they're anything.
Yeah, they are.
Well, you also, but you fear Emotep,
You do,
Emotep,
yeah.
but you see that they can cause damage, like with their conniving. They're like
Yeah.
conniving villains.
And
Yeah, well, that's sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, especially Benny, you see his treachery many times.
Yeah.
And so, but then like you get into a situation where you almost like have to trust him or you have to be with him. And that feels like a real kind of, so even though he is very cartoony, I think it gets that vibe across very well.
I meant that as a positive, just to be
Okay,
clear.
okay.
The cartoonish vibe that
Yeah.
they give off like adds to the charm of the movie for me.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
let's
go
play,
ahead.
let's play a quick game here. What ethnicity generally is the dungeon owner? Middle Eastern, right?
Wait, oh, you mean
Yeah.
the warden?
Yeah,
the
the warden.
warden, yeah.
The warden, yeah.
Yeah.
And Benny, a little unclear, I would say, considering he's fighting with the colonial army, but alongside an American.
I got
So
like
you don't really
Eastern European from him.
Yeah, I
I
can
could see that.
but
Yeah.
I was like, maybe it's because of the setting, but I was also seeing like Middle Eastern of some variety. And
He's got this like European accent that's a little bit.
his accent is like, yeah, I can't place his accent. I can't place any of it. But all that to say, like, these are all these characters are archetypes all the way down to the shrewd trader type, which is the warden.
yeah.
And then like the conniving and lowly coward, who is also like in the olden films, traditionally ethnic, and all the white people are pretty up and up, except for Jonathan, who's just a little bit not. So I don't know. This is like backing me into what I think is kind of my main gripe with this movie,
Uh-huh.
which is that this is a movie template. This doesn't feel like a full movie to me. This movie feels like it's very much going for something, and it succeeds to some extent, but it's not compelling to me at all. Like, it can't all rest on Brendan Fraser's charisma, and that's not even, in my opinion, on full display here. And I also disagree that Rachel Weisz and whoever played Jonathan, whatever his name was, that they like did a great job. I think they did good as archetypes. Again, they were very much playing the templated role, but none of them had any sort of like charm that I think exuded beyond that. And it just left me really bored, especially because we were going back and forth between the same two locales so often. And because, I don't know, I also have latent like childhood memories of being bored by this. So I'm not going to not factor that in. Certainly I have a bias against it to start with, but I'm trying to set that aside. This movie just doesn't feel like it fleshes out beyond, okay, here's the template, pack in the action scenes, go home.
Yeah.
And, like it it left me bored, man. It really did. Again, I felt really no different this time than I did the first time I watched it.
So the comedy and the action weren't enough to pull you through the movie.
The comedy wasn't that strong for me. Like the thing is, like the comedy, it hinges a lot on either like, okay, like the brother and sister banter. That's a little charming or whatever, but it's again archetypal, and it's not really. It didn't feel specific to those people.
Yeah.
It felt like an arc. It felt like something that could have been pulled out of any Alan Quartermain book, which was what they're going for. So I can't really ding them too hard, but at the same time, it just didn't leave me fulfilled. But then your other comedy effects are the Warden and Benny, who, like we already discovered, are archetypal as well, and also just not. To me, like Benny was probably the funniest in terms of being just absolute rote coward, but even he is not like the fact that he factors into the story so much. It just feels like overused maybe. And the Warden feels underused, like a red shirt. Like, I don't know. There's none of that comedy really was enough. And the action, it just kind of glazed me over, man. I didn't care about these characters enough to care about what action was going on. It all felt very MacGuffin-y and very like, and that the thing is that can work sometimes.
Yeah.
But like, it just didn't. I don't know how personal this is just for me, but I feel like all of this stuff really landed with a thud.
There was there's the comedy is pretty goofy. Like when we first are introduced to Evie's character, like she knocks over the entire library.
Yeah,
It's
after
dominoes.
she dances around on a ladder.
Yeah, which again
That's
is
just
cartoonish, and it's like I could see someone not digging that vibe, but
I can too,
Didn't
but
bother me.
I found that I also too, we were watching this, and then part of the trivia kind of reflects this. It actually, to me, feels very thoughtful in the choices that they make. And I think it pays a lot of almost respect to the kind of original vibes in a way of like it being a Universal monster movie, but then kind of bringing it into the 90s, almost 2000. And so like it's that old school kind of slapstick, or physical comedy where she's dancing around on the ladder. And I felt like that was a little bit of
action stunt comedy. Like Jackie Chan stunt comedy. Which
Maybe,
can work.
yeah.
Like again, this movie reminds me very much after seeing it this time. Reminded me very much of and really the whole franchise reminds me of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise because it's not just it's very genre specific and uses archetypes. But the difference for me is one thing: it's not set in a desert, which I have a proclivity against in general.
Yeah.
It's just a total bias thing.
Didn't you live in Phoenix, Arizona, Randy?
didn't
I
you
did
love
have a great
every
time.
second of it?
But, no, it was during COVID, so I couldn't even get the best parts of it. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But the difference between Pirates of the Caribbean and this movie is that you have Jack Sparrow as your lead, who, as much as I like Brendan Fraser, he is also playing to archetype. He's not playing a unique version of the archetype. Jack Sparrow was, and there's a reason that like that doesn't last past the Black Pearl for me. Like in that franchise, it also like wanes at that point. But at least like in that first one, it was like this is not a pirate we've seen before. This is a person, not a archetype.
I get that.
I don't know.
But I guess that character was kind of built up by a whole bunch of other archetypes that did good. Like the guy who plays like the main pirate or whatever on the Black
Barbossa.
Pearl.
Yeah, he was very much like the by the numbers pirate that I wanted and didn't get from other necessarily all the other like main pirates. And I was happy about that.
I can see that there's nobody particularly distinct in this movie, but I think everybody just plays their role so well. Like anytime I see these people, like, yeah, it might be an archetype, but they are that. Like they become it for me. And I think everybody kind of nails that. The only one that I guess like Imhotep, I don't know. I found some of the effects, even though the CGI wasn't as good, like we were talking about it. Mm-hmm. And this is a little bit of a segue too about the horror element of this. There's not that much horror element, but I think there's things that still kind of can bother you in a horrific kind of way. Like we were talking about the holes in his face, and Bob has that hole phobia.
It did bother me.
Phobia.
His face is rotted off. It's fucked up.
Yeah, and like things crawl through it. And so there was still effect. And even though the bugs don't look go from the CGI because they're so far away and they're a swarm. Like when they eat things and then there's this juicy mummy or just bones left behind, I was like, I feel like that's the best way to kind of at least still have that horror element, and the CGI isn't so terrible because they're bugs that are far away.
Well, yeah, and I agree to the point. Like the CGI for its time is pretty good, but it
Yeah.
doesn't hold up to scrutiny now. Obviously, it holds up better than fucking Scorpion King's first appearance, which is notorious.
Oh my lord.
But it's not terrible for its time. It doesn't seem like
It
it
is
to me anymore.
rough.
But I will, and I like the scarabs in general. I like the idea of the scarabs. That's the thing that stuck with me about this movie most, that I did like from when I was a kid. I always remember the scarabs. I thought that was a cool idea. And I thought they were animated well enough because it's like a swarm of particles and not like a figure or anything that has to be humanoid. It works. But I disagree about Imhotep's face and shit. Nothing. No sort of tension. No feeling towards it except, yep, that is the mummy.
You know what else I like too is when the Americans died and they linger every single time they get their soul sucked out. They linger on this like just mummified, all the juices completely sucked out of them. And I thought for a PG-13, I thought that was solid effects for a mummy movie.
Nice and dry corpse.
Yeah,
It was
I thought it
fine.
was solid.
I don't see this again. That's another thing that's analogous between this movie and Pirates is there's like just a very surface level PG-13 horror element to it.
Yeah.
And it does well enough at that, I would say. But to me, like the CGI kind of kills some of the mummy effects for me.
One of the more notorious CGI sequences in this movie is the like the mummy mouth sandstorm chasing the airplane towards the end. I thought that held up pretty well, actually. I mean, it's not perfect.
Yeah, because it's just a face.
Yeah, and
or,
it's
like,
not
outline.
supposed to have a lot of detail because it's just sand.
And I
you know?
liked when that face first showed up in above his grave. I liked that. I didn't remember that from the original viewing that I saw of it, but
I was
things
trying to
like that,
think.
I was
I
okay
think
with.
the worst looking CGI was maybe like the ghosty effects, like when Imhotep's soul gets like charioted away at the end. And then when also too when they're resurrecting the
resurrection.
girlfriend or whatever, that looks pretty rough, the water stuff. But I will say another horror element too, man. I don't know. I think this is pretty effective. And again, I'm looking at it through a bit of a younger lens. But when we watch it this time, I would like verbally say things out and say like, oh man, that's still kind of affecting me now. Of like the opening scene, they bury these people alive and they show you doing it. These guys are being wrapped in mummy suits and they're like screaming. There's screams in the background. They cut off Imhotep's tongue. They fill his thing with full of flesh-eating bugs. And then later on, you see the scratch marks on like the inside of the thing. I'm like, damn, that's like some psychological horror shit. Like, damn, buried alive.
I can get behind that. And if they had leaned harder into that than the CGI stuff and made this like just pulled back on the action and some of the scenes of like extended action scenes in general, I might have had a different feeling towards this movie in general. But I also want to point out that in that beginning scene, this is a story problem that I noticed, or maybe it's not a problem. You guys tell me. But they have this thing where they're saying, okay, Imhotep, did something unspeakably evil. He killed the pharaoh, and so to punish him, they used a punishment that they just don't use because it's just too cruel to ever use. But they did it anyway, and the net effect of that is that he became an immortal sand god. The fuck kind of curse is that? Like, what? Why would you imbue the most evil person with the potential for greatest destruction? That's the dumbest shit in the world.
Yeah. That's a fair
point.
Yeah.
That is a fair point. Because he just, why wouldn't he just rot away like in the nether realm forever?
Kill him or torture him if you're going to be cruel about it. But you don't have to.
He's also like
give him powers.
He's like a high priest. Maybe it was just one of those things that he could do.
No,
he squirreled it away.
They specifically said in the narration that they, and
he would become
watch
living
over him
death.
specifically because if he
Yeah.
ever became released, he would be living death. Yeah, essentially. So it's part of the curse that they chose to put on him. So why not just not?
I don't know. Like, why didn't they just burn the book that you got to read from to bring him back to life?
Or that too. I don't know.
And
Or
then
maybe
you're
you
done.
can't because they're not pages. They're like big fucking carved things, but
Blocks of
even
gold.
still, and they're like, you know, they're items to be worshipped or whatever. All that's fine, you know, whatever. But it's just like, okay, so this is the punishment for your crime is to make you a super god. What does that do for anyone? It's just you're tortured for a millennia or whatever. So sure, he got that. He got the shit into that stick. But then he comes back and he's just right back at it with an expanded arsenal.
I mean, they don't talk about it. If you want to try and play devil's advocate, you almost could say if it followed a logic of like, say, like witch logic, where you can't gain any power without anything being taken away. If they wanted to torture him for an eternity, maybe it comes with the consequence of, well, if he ever gets out though, you know, you better watch out. So because like if you got to keep something alive for it to feel the pain and to be tortured forever and ever and ever, well then if there's a chance that, you know, there is this Book of the Dead, if somebody, because there's a good book too. The good book seems to torture him.
Sure is.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to torture him or take his power away or subject him to things. So it's like this balance type of thing. So maybe if like you want to keep something alive.
At every opportunity.
Yes, I don't know.
I get what you're saying, but it just doesn't make logical sense. Even if you want to like cause this person the most pain possible, like you gotta under like if it just doesn't make sense to give him an out at all. That gives him a chance for redemption or of any kind. And he could have, if he became fully human again.
Well, I'm just saying maybe it's out of their reach, because again, the people that they entomb and torture are the actual priests. So the people who are doing this are not necessarily the specialists.
Maybe
because
they don't know.
The priests all just got
like,
them.
Bury them in X such a way. They had something.
The narrator knows. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
The narrator. I don't. To me, it's just it's a pretty faulty setup to begin with. And I get like I understand like the horror aspect of it, and that's probably what prompted them to do it that way. Is because they want him. Okay, the punishment is to be tortured forever, but then he also has to then become alive again. He has to like become the mummy so that we can have a mummy movie. So that's just, they just didn't think, I don't think very far beyond that, or didn't give it enough, I don't know, they didn't justify it to me. And that's kind of like a lot of the problems I have with this movie, which is a lot of the justifications for things just seem either like not thought out or just not compelling to me. And it's due in part to the fact that the characters aren't compelling in and of themselves to me in general. Even Brendan Fraser, who does have charisma in general, and I do like, I'm biased towards him in general because I feel like he's a decent dude and I want to see him succeed in this movie. He's a lot of the times doing shit that's just like very try hard feeling, try hard to be a badass. Some of it's like legit, like he's an action hero. He definitely does action hero shit, no question. But then shit like the thing that's immediately coming to mind is Rachel Weisz drunkenly trying to give him a kiss, and he's going for it. He's about to go for it, and I'm like, that's skeevy as fuck. I don't like that. Like little things like that just make. And then like the way he responds to her as a prisoner, and he kisses her. It's just like, it's not even just the kissing thing, but just those are good examples that come to mind immediately of him being like, not just, you know, an action hero, roguish. It's like he's going for Han Solo, but he's coming out a little creepy.
Yeah, he does not come off as Han Solo to me. I see where you're pulling that from though. There is some creepy shit going on, but he also like gives this goofy like yell at the mummy, one of the mummies, I guess is one of the priests or whatever. When
that was the most Frasier moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like super silly, and like I don't know, a character like Han Solo just wouldn't do that. So it's still like you've got some of that Brendan Fraser charm coming through, but you're right though, like that like both the kiss sequences are a little like off-putting.
They
don't have chemistry in my opinion. Like so
I actually really like them, and in the second one they have like a kid or whatever, spoiler warning. But I don't know. Their chemistry that's why I didn't want to put it all on Brendan Fraser, because I think Rachel Weisz does a good job too. I think she embodies that character in my mind for me. And because I did like all of the movies and I kind of followed them, she's a character that like sticks out in my mind. She's like smart. She's got this like sassy kind of way to her. She's sexy as fuck. She's I don't know. She's just a distinct character. I know you said she kind of fits this archetype, but to me, I think she really does act as a standout character in my mind and embodies this character well and brings it herself. I like even the drunk scene. I liked it. I like kind
I
of
liked it up into the kiss. Like,
up
she
into
was
the
fun.
kiss, but the way she acts it is kind of what I mean.
She,
I like that everybody kind of has flaws. So, like, yeah, Brendan Fraser is kind of an asshole. I like that Evie, she's super smart, but she's also self-conscious. Jonathan, you know, he's like a good, lovable dude, but he's like not reliable. I don't know. Everybody's kind of got their thing.
What's a girl like? What's a place like this doing to a girl like me?
Yeah.
That's the line she says.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. The whole I don't agree about Rachel Weisz in this movie. Like, and I don't want to comment on the sequels because I haven't seen them in long enough to where it wouldn't be an informed opinion at this point. But I don't like everything she does. It's capably done. It's not that she's doing a bad job. It's that it's just feels very rote, and it doesn't like when all it takes is Jonathan like fucking jumps a corpse out at her. That's our introduction to him as a character. It was a great introduction for him, but for her, she's like, why would you do that? Don't you have any respect? And like, why would you scare me like that? And then he says something like nice to her, and she just immediately melts like a fucking chocolate bunny in the sun. And I'm like, I don't get this. This is a brother-sister relationship. This feels like she has a crush on him or something at that point. I don't know. It didn't really.
It's her older brother, and their parents are dead, and they're together in Egypt.
I got the brother and sister vibe
like
from that.
Okay,
pretty good.
That's. I mean, that scene in particular, I did not really play that for me. Later on, I could see a little bit of good brother sister banter back and forth, like when Brendan Fraser is hitting on her at the end or whatever, and Jonathan's like, "Oh shit, here we go," that sort of thing. That all was very, very like that felt real on some level.
Yeah.
But the intro or whatever, I was just like, if you're this person that is so desperately engaged with Egyptology, you want to be like a respected Egyptologist, but your gender is pushing you aside and all this stuff. That's her sole focus in life. And your brother is like fucking around with a mummy to scare you, an actual mummy, an artifact of ancient goddamn Egypt. And then all it takes is him being like, "Oh, you're a sweet gal," and she's like, "Oh, you're a shenanigan maker, aren't you?" I don't know. All that shit doesn't work for me. It just seems like her priorities fall out the window the minute somebody's nice to her for a second, and I don't know. It didn't work for me.
I wanted to briefly mention a character he's very much a secondary character, but cracked me up every scene he was in. Was the Captain Winston, the guy who flies the plane towards the end.
Oh yeah.
Like they meet him in the hotel they're staying at in Cairo, and he's like sort of this like old war hero, I guess. Like, and he's just at the bar drinking. He's used to having these adventures and brawls, and he's like kind of just doesn't know what to do with himself. And then they call on him later because they need to borrow his airplane. And he flies into the mouth of the big sandstorm mummy face. And he's like having the time of his life because he's like finally having an adventure again, and crashes the plane and ends up dying in the process. But like that brief, like 2 scenes with that character, I really enjoyed.
You know, that's the perfect amount of like of archetypal character, because that is that guy's basically Porco Rosso. He's like he's the big blustery pilot who devil may care, danger magnet guy, and they used him just the right amount. Story wise, it's a little bit like Deus Ex Machina a little bit, which is fine, but he like him as a character, like watching him, like that was all good to me because he wasn't central. Like I think that's why Barbossa, for example, works for me. It's because he's a central figure, but he's not the main character. Brendan Fraser, I feel like, you know, for all of his charisma and all that shit that we've praised him for, in this movie, he doesn't do a lot that any other actor wouldn't do. He doesn't do a lot that, you know, makes him distinctive and therefore makes him a pivot point for me. Instead, this feels like watching a pulp novel from the 20s put on screen, which is what people wanted to some extent. It's what the directors or the people who made this movie clearly wanted to some extent, is that. But it just like as a cinema going experience, it's just too many dings. It's just too many fucking dings.
Yeah,
I'm giving my rating, and I'm sorry, I just can't.
No, that's fine.
It's very broad complaints that I have.
I hear what you're saying, and it's hard to say because obviously we'll never see anybody in this movie other than Brendan Fraser. But like I keep just thinking about fucking Tom Cruise and like how unlikable he is in that movie. And like I know Matthew McConaughey was potentially going to play this role too. And like I don't think it would have the same charisma if it was Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, some of the actors that tried out for this, and this is in the late 90s. So to show how hot kind of Brendan Fraser was back then, it was Matthew McConaughey, Tom Cruise at the time in the 90s. He was doing Mission Impossible shit, tried out for this movie. Yeah. Brad Pitt, the dudes from Ben Affleck and his little other partner guy.
His
What's
little
that guy's
dude.
guy?
Ben Affleck and his
Matt Damon?
Matt
His little
Damon.
partner
Yeah.
guy? Dude, that's hilarious because
His little
like,
guy.
Chris O'Donnell.
the common logic of the Matt Damon Ben Affleck relationship is that Matt Damon did most of the work on Good Will Hunting.
Well,
I don't know if that's true. I have no knowledge of that, but that seems to be the general joke of it. And it's so funny that you would sideline Matt Damon to the point of being sidekick.
anyways, those are Matthew McConaughey, Chris O'Donnell, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Tom Cruise. I mean, those were big Brad Pitt
Fraser
in the
was
fucking
huge.
90s, dude. Damn.
What was his big didn't he have a relatively big role like not too long before
I
this?
think George of the Jungle was before this.
So yeah, he was doing like big comedy stuff mostly, and this was a big
Yeah.
success. So it kind of pushed him over into leading man territory. But there's a reason that he wasn't the first choice for this is because wasn't a proven leading man, and this I guess proved it enough for this franchise. Lord knows because they made bundles of money. So don't ain't broke, don't fix it, whatever. But to me, it just doesn't. It doesn't have staying power. It has genre power, but it doesn't have staying power for me. And like it's too long for a movie that relies so heavily on genre tropes.
He was in Airheads in the army now.
Yeah, Encino Man,
Encino Man.
Airheads. I fucking love Airheads. That movie's dumb
Glory
as shit.
Days,
Love it.
George of the Jungle. He was in The Simpsons.
George of the Jungle is 97.
Yeah, and then The Mummy 99, and then he did Blast from the Past, also in 99.
Blast
and
from
Dudley
the
Do-Right in
Past.
1999.
I forgot
Holy
about
shit.
Blast from the Past.
I watched
dude.
that not too long ago. I do like that movie for
Yeah.
all its flaws. It's also got Alicia Silverstone in it. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's got a lot of flaws, is what I'm saying.
What?
Damn, this guy had multiple movies coming out in 1997, 98, 99, 2000,
Yeah, I
2001.
You guys read that article that I think it was Jim or somebody shared on
Right.
I was just about to talk
why he was
about that,
blackballed.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, he and Alice talked about this too because
Yeah.
she picked this movie. Shout out to Alice, and she really likes it and was kind of interested in Brendan Fraser. And yeah, that dude actually had a rough go of it. One of the big things that kind of set him off was he was like sexually assaulted by what's that dude's name? Burr.
So yeah, in
Bill
2003 is this dude by the name of Philip Burke.
Burke.
He's a former president of the HFPA. They're the nonprofit group that holds the Golden Globes every year.
Ah, yeah.
And he
Foreign
was like,
Press Association.
exactly, yeah. And he was like, I guess, leaving the Golden Globes. Philip Burke like beckoned to him and reached around back of him and grabbed his butt and then like
diddled him.
in
Yeah.
the taint. Yeah.
And
So
like
I wish I
really
could use
fucked
better
it.
words for
No,
that.
I mean, but not, essentially that's how he describes
Yeah,
it.
that is how pretty much exactly
if you
how he
can
described
I mean, he doesn't say diddle, obviously, but I mean, you can imagine
guess
the
he
idea of a
reacted
diddle.
in a way that wasn't conducive to his career. So I'm assuming.
Well, so there's no proof of this. So this is alleged that this happened, and it affected Brendan Fraser in a very negative way. Also,
sure.
based on the article that we're referencing is a GQ article. It's pretty extensive. It talks about Brendan Fraser's career, his life after Hollywood, and sort of his return to Hollywood. So there's a lot in it. But this was sort of the cherry on top, as it seems like Brendan Fraser. Basically his body was just like at the end of his rope. He had been so beaten up from doing these action adventure movies. He had to have like extensive back surgery. He said when they were filming the third Mummy, he was basically wearing ice packs all over his body every day just to do the shoot. He was going through a divorce. One of his children has special needs, and that was taking a lot of his attention as well. And then this happens where he was physically assaulted by this man. And
I think later too, like before he gave like some interview when he was kind of coming back, he had gained some weight. He got like real bad pneumonia or something too, or he was just getting over like a really bad bout of pneumonia and was just like real fucked up. So the dude's kind of had a rough go of it, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. So
That sucks, man.
I don't know that he was necessarily blackballed, because I mean it took I don't know, a decade for him to really even tell anybody about this. But it affected him mentally for sure, and it made him sort of like recoil. I think he says something along the lines of like he felt something was taken from him, and he just sort of recoiled a little bit. So
you can't blame him for that. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's like, I don't know, man. That story reminded me, like, not that specific part of it, but it reminded me of the Rick Moranis situation where he, basically his wife was ailing and he quit Hollywood entirely, quit the entertainment industry to take care of his kids because she passed away, I believe. And, years later, he just does like the occasional passion project, it seems like, and shows up and then apparently gets punched on the streets of New York. That happened to him.
Yeah, but I fucking forgot about that, dude. That's messed up.
Yeah, but he's like, it's that same sort of thing where it's the guy, like, you're like at the top of your game, successful actor, making millions of dollars per picture, but you can't continue because of the mental and physical and familial strain of your own life. I respect the fuck out of anybody who can say no to that sort of lifestyle in order to, protect themselves and protect their family or whatever else. Like that's true fortitude, in my opinion. So good on him for that. Horrible that shit had to happen to him for him to, for that to happen or for that to be necessitated.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like he did what was right for him, and it also sounds like he's making a bit of a return to the screen. I know he's been doing some work on TV. I haven't seen any of it myself, but it's cool to
he's done
see
a
him
few
working
movies,
again.
right? Like
Has
they're
he?
not movies that I've heard of really. They're kind of in the Mark Wahlberg, Roku advertisement movie level sort of thing, where it might be on like Tubi or something shit like that. I don't know. I haven't seen. I don't think he's been in a major release in some time that I can recall. The last one I remember is Crash.
Yeah, he's been doing TV work for Doom Patrol and Professionals.
Oh, he's done Doom Patrol.
Yeah, so that's what he's doing now, and it looks like he's got 4 pictures that are about to come out. They say
Maybe that's what I saw. Maybe that's why I haven't
post-production.
heard of
Yeah,
him.
yeah. So there's stuff coming out. So he's back to work, which is good. But yeah, it's interesting to hear like the inside details of all that, because like like we just mentioned, Brendan Fraser was everywhere, having several movies come out a year in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then for him to just kind of vanish, it leaves you scratching your head a little bit. It's somewhat of it's kind of a bummer to hear that like he wasn't just satisfied with his career and moved on. Like it was more nefarious, unfortunately. But
Just a shame. But anyway, but look, as far as this movie goes, like this is household name Brendan Fraser we're talking here. This, if not before this, then certainly after this. And so he's like riding high off the success of this film. But for me, it just doesn't go beyond a decent job. Like that thing that you mentioned earlier where like, the mummy screams at him and he screams back really goofy and then shoots it in the face. Yeah. That's a great Brendan Fraser moment.
Yeah,
not a great whatever Rick O'Connell moment. That's a great Brendan Fraser moment. And if there were more of those kind of moments in this movie, then I know there's a couple of examples, but for a 2-hour runtime, they're few and far between. They're nuggets and they're oasis in a desert, shall we say? And it just doesn't.
I like what you did there.
There's not enough for me to feel strongly about his character in general. Like I'm happy to see a few stunts, but the few stunts go on and on and on and on and on and on, and he doesn't really justify anything.
Yeah. Is there any other major point you guys want to touch on before we rate this? No.
Yeah.
Crickets.
There's one thing.
Okay.
And this is kind of a personal feeling. I'm gonna pass the baton here, and somebody has some thoughts for us.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Disney's coming for your ass.
Wow, we're sued.
Anakin.
We're fucking sued.
Anakin's saying what we're all thinking about this movie, guys. Come on. I don't like sand.
Randy's not a sand. And actually, we were watching a movie where they're in the sand, and I was like, oh,
Yeah, no, you've said that before, which is why
Yeah,
I was
that I
interested
did-
to hear what you thought about it in this one, because you love
Yeah.
this movie, right?
I get the idea. At least with
It was Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat,
the
yeah,
new Mortal
That's
Kombat.
right. We were watching Mortal Kombat again, and they're in the sand. I was like, oh, this is an ugly setting. And in this one, it didn't bother me as much. Now that you say that they went back and forth, I do see where that is tiresome, because it really is just two places, and they're not that different.
Mhm.
And it didn't bother me as much because the story lended itself to it. So like when I think of the Mummy, you think of Egypt, and like when Indiana Jones, when he's in Egypt, it fits like what's going on. So at least it has a purpose, and the stereotype things you think of in those places are there, and so they kind of work together. But yeah, it's not it's not my favorite by any means, but it didn't necessarily bother me as much as I think it normally does.
It bothered me a little bit, like, because the first time they go, they find a book, but it's a bad book, and then they go back to Cairo and they're like, "Oh, there's another book. Let's go get that other book." And it's like going to the
it's
library.
supposed to
We're
be
going
like a
back to the
3-week
library.
journey or some shit.
Yeah.
And they have to like stand in a specific place for it to just appear, which that was their Raiders of the Lost Ark moment, where they have like the sun coming down through the pendant and all that stuff in that underground cave, except it doesn't make any goddamn sense at all. So
True. Yeah.
like at least that like made some form of sense where, okay, it's an ancient technology, the sun is being used to pinpoint a location, not the sun is just revealing fucking an entire goddamn
Oh, it's a little weak, yeah.
like what the fuck? I don't know.
It's like the idea of a mirage, I guess.
Yeah,
Except
but
it reveals something
Yeah.
instead of
It
what happens
reveals.
if you walk towards it without the sun being there?
Yeah, that's a great question, because they know they're looking in
run
the correct
into-
direction, and then the sun sets, and then they just go in that direction.
yeah, and also they wait for the sun come up as if the city wouldn't be there if they just rode in that direction.
Yeah,
because they know where
exactly.
they know where to stop to watch the sun.
Yeah.
So
This
why
isn't like a
wouldn't you just
7-Eleven.
ride in that direction?
This is a fucking city. This is
Yeah.
like giant with giant statues and shit.
But
This
they-
isn't like a way station.
Yeah, that's magic shit, and maybe they just didn't like explain
know.
it well, but it's just magic.
No,
shit.
I don't. I just don't think they thought about it well. Like, and that's like
Maybe.
to me, it's just like, and all of that can be forgiven with big blockbuster like action movies to some extent. Like, but with all of that,
Yeah.
plus the tropiness and archetypal nature of it, plus the length, plus the fucking desert setting, which is just a personal bias I have against this movie, just falls.
All right, now we're just rating it, so let's do it. Out of 5, Juice, why don't you kick us off? How you feel?
All right. I actually really liked this movie. However, Randy does bring up some good points that have never really bothered me before, but are correct. The idea of him just having these magical powers, even though he like did something wrong. The mirage thing is a little silly. I didn't really think about that there's not like distinct characters. One character we didn't even talk about is the like guy in all black, the protector guy or whatever.
Oh yeah,
The
the fucking
Magi.
Which to give them one credit, because Randy brought up this earlier, like with the warden, that guy, he actually like is an Israeli actor, so he's not Egyptian, but
Mhm.
he I mean, at least, you know, to kind of counterbalance the warden, I guess. We don't know where we don't know what Benny's where he's supposed to be from. So
Yeah.
really the two guys we know that are supposed to be Egyptian, Middle Eastern, there's the warden, and then there's a dude in all black.
Yeah,
So it's
the
like,
mystic.
yeah. So I generally like these characters. One thing we didn't bring up to counterbalance some of Randy's negatives that I personally like. So we talked about the sand not being like the best setting and stuff like that. I like the aesthetic of this movie and like some of the props. Like I like the idea of the key, the way it opens up and it's a little bit of this puzzle box. And then also the way the books look, like they've got this weight to it. And there's this black one and it's the Book of Death. And there's one made out of solid gold. And whenever they're lifting up, they're fucking huge. And they got to like turn the pages. I don't know. And then there's that one setting where they have the guy who's had his eyes ripped out and Imhotep's sitting across from him. He's got this like baller mask to hide that he's this mummy creature.
To
I
hide
liked
their
all
lack of
that.
money for CGI at that point.
I liked those like aesthetic things. I think for a PG-13 movie, I liked the horror, action, and comedy. Again, the horror, like the dude having his eyes and tongue ripped out and like wandering around and begging for help. And then even Rachel Weisz being approached by the monster, who's CGI and doesn't look particularly good in that scene, not gonna lie. But her like asking for help and this dude just wandering around, having his tongue and eyes ripped out, like that's got some psychological horror to it. That's fucked up. Being buried alive, eaten by beetles, seeing it crawl under their skin, bugs crawling through his holes, like the dried up mummies of people who just had their souls sucked. I like every bit of that. Now, some of the CGI doesn't hold up when he's strolling around just as a mummy creature. It doesn't look great. But all of those other things I mentioned, I think are pretty solid for a PG-13 that is blending comedy, action, and horror. I think those horror elements are strong for me. I like the action. I do agree now, thinking about there is no distinct character like a Jack Sparrow. But I do like all the actors in this. I think they do a good job with their characters, but I do agree they're not particularly distinct. One of the things about the magic, there's a lot of bullshit magic, like the Mirage. But one thing I did like that at least made sense, I guess, is that he was bringing on like the plagues. So when you would see like the blood turn or the water turn to blood, or the locusts come in, I was like, at least that's tied to something. So
yeah, incredibly. This is something that a general audience might understand as a reference.
Yeah, I know, but at least it's like specific to Egypt. So yeah, I think there are some counterbalances, but those you did bring up very good points. Generally, though, I like this movie. I have fun with it. I do see your points, though, and it is actually going to affect my score and drop it down a scotch. So I think I'm going to end this movie ultimately at a 3.5. I intended to kind of give it a 4, honestly, but yeah, I'll drop it down a bit.
Can I point out that the plagues that you're talking about are Christian plagues put upon the Pharaoh, not the other way around?
That's true. That's true.
He's taking them back, Randy.
Some of them Christian plagues.
Yo,
out of 5, what do you think of The Mummy? Not Tom Cruise Stains Mummy.
Thank you for clarifying. Mummy 1999. I dig this movie, generally speaking. The writing is not as tight as I would prefer it to be, but given that we've been discussing at length very recently some big summer blockbuster movies, we just covered Godzilla vs. Kong, and we didn't do an episode on Mortal Kombat, but we talked about it extensively on the Slack channel. I still think this movie is written way better than either of those movies are. It's got some holes and it's got some redundancy, but there is enough meat on the bones here to kind of help me get through some of the poor writing. We get into the movie and it starts off with some brutality, having Imhotep mummified alive. It really does start off pretty horrifically. You get the charm with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz, or Weiss, however it is. And the back and forth between her and her brother, I dig it.
Weisz.
Rachel, thank you, Google. And I get that we're dealing with a lot of archetypes here, even when it comes to the Warden and Benny, but they're sort of charming in a way that just reminds me of other things that I like. So it's shorthand archetypes. That's sort of the point, but it doesn't feel overly tropey to me for some reason. It still feels like there's enough of a character there that I buy into the performance. And maybe it's just the actors that they hired, but it's not deep. I'm not trying to say that it is, but there's enough there that I can enjoy the performance for what it is and not be taken out of the scene by the performance. The pilot is hilarious. I dig when he's on the screen. That iconic fucking sandstorm, man. You ask anybody about that scene, if they haven't seen the movie, they've seen the trailer, they're gonna know that scene. Yeah. It's inescapable. I dig that this movie has a scene like that where it's like a cultural touchstone. Everybody's gonna know it. That's really, really cool.
It's a little more impactful than
yeah. Tell me one scene from that movie.
I can tell you 2, but neither are good, so it's not
okay. Well, that's impressive. Some of the CGI doesn't quite hold up but for the day, 1999, the majority of it is pretty decent still. I don't know. I dig it. It's just some of the writing is a little bit loosey goosey. Yeah, I'm gonna meet Justin here with a 3.5. Yeah, Randy, how you feel out of 5?
I don't like sand.
I don't like
Right,
sand.
right.
I kind of laid out my broad points here, but just to sort of like go off some of the other stuff that's been talked about, I don't think that this I don't think that the CGI aged as badly as it could have, which I was shocked by because of the reputation this movie has, or later entries in the franchise have. So good on it for that. But yeah, this movie is I feel like it's just on the line of too tropey. I can understand why you guys feel differently, and part of it I feel like is probably because we saw it when we were younger and we just took different things away from it then, and we carry that shit with us. But I feel like even beyond that, like this is a pretty goddamn tropey movie, and if you're gonna have a movie this tropey and then also have it set in a setting that is personally just not that engaging for me, and then have them go to the same couple of similar looking places over and over again, it just adds up. And like none of the like charisma, I don't think that Brendan Fraser was given full reign of his charisma in this movie. I don't think that Rachel Weisz did. I don't think anybody did terribly. Well, I'll say that. But Rachel Weisz did a few lines that I was like, meh, that just didn't play as reality for me. I don't know. I think this movie really could have been a Curse of the Black Pearl. It could have been that for me, which I did love and I still love, but it's because it doesn't have enough of a unique flavor to it, and it's too fucking long for a movie. It's short. It uses shorthand, like Rob said, the shorthand of tropes, but it's not short. So it just suffers for it. And then the action scenes or whatever, like if it's Jackie Chan doing fucking action comedy in fucking Rush Hour, then I'm there for it, baby. I could watch that shit. It's dumb, but I could watch it and enjoy it because I like Jackie Chan. I don't particularly like Rick O'Connell or whatever Rachel Weisz's characters, Evelyn. I don't like them enough or like care about them enough to see them in a situation where they're balancing on a fucking ladder and then knocking things over in a pratfall in an action comedy sequence that to me is like, okay, this is my introduction to her. I get it. It accomplishes what they want to accomplish, but it doesn't do anything for me personally. And that's what kind of like the baseline of this whole movie for me is that it accomplishes what it sets out to do, much in the way you mentioned. Somebody mentioned Godzilla versus Kong. That movie also like sets out to do, and I think does what it sets out to do. I think this movie does what it sets out to do as well. I just don't like what it's doing. So it really is like between these two movies, that's kind of the key difference is I like Godzilla and I like King Kong. I don't like Rick O'Connell that much. So I just don't like this. Imhotep is fucking a white dude who could pass for Billy Zane in a fucking celebrity impersonator contest, but that's about it. I don't know. It just doesn't work for me. But all that said, all that's very negative, but I don't feel like I can't take this movie away from anybody. I wouldn't want to. I can see why people like it. It's just very much a personal, like, I think it's my personal things stack up against it quite a bit. And then like the plotting and shit like that, like Universal things do kind of count against it. But those things, yeah, it just doesn't add up to anything worthwhile for me. All that said, I think that it's a worthwhile movie for a good number of people, and I can see why they'd like it. And I also really love the Universal Studios ride. So all that taken into account, 2.5 for me. I think it's middling.
2.5 from Randy. That's going to make our
I
aggregate
don't like sand.
a very sandy 3.2. Let's go ahead and jump into our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think about The Mummy.
Certified to death.
To death. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the segment of the show where I'm going to look up on Rotten Tomatoes this film and allow these two gentlemen to guess to the best of their abilities what the aggregate ratings are for both critics and user scores. For some reason, my tab is missing, so I'm going to have to look it up again, but no problem. I'm
Googling.
making it work.
Googling away.
Google.
Missing.
Google Beaver.
I think it's because
Randy.
I had to look up Rachel Weisz pronunciation, which for the
Had
record sounds like
had
this.
to.
Rachel Weisz.
Thank you.
That was a
Wow.
slow version.
Right.
All right, let's start with Soju. For the critics, there are 101 critic reviews.
Whoa. All right.
101. What do you think that's going to be, Soju?
I think this is generally going to be favorable. And I think it's probably one of those situations where it's probably going to be a little higher than it maybe should be, just because I think more people are going to be okay keeping this a favorable score. And so I'm going to go with an 75.
75. All right. Bob, how about you?
Right there with Juice, honestly. I'm going to go just a little bit lower and take a 72.
72. All right. Well, that is going to be a good move for you, Bob. It is a 61%.
Whoa,
So-
all right.
All right.
And about 11 off there. The critics' consensus being this is not certified fresh. It's not does not meet that threshold. But this critics' consensus reads as follows: it's difficult to make a persuasive argument for The Mummy as any kind of meaningful cinematic achievement, but it's undeniably fun to watch. I deny that actually, but that's a minority
Sourpuss
opinion. it
Randy.
seems.
Not fun to watch at all.
Randy's
Randy.
taking
not-
my position this
It's
week.
it's the third move. This is the third time I've seen this movie, and I have not enjoyed it once. So I mean,
Wow.
that's, I don't know
Man.
what to say about that. It just kind of speaks
Yeah.
for itself, doesn't it?
It's no Godzilla vs. Kong, huh, Randy?
I enjoyed that because I like those characters. They can be those movies can be like real shitty and still achieve everything they wanted to be.
Yeah.
And so can this one, as it turns out. Let's read a random negative review before we move on to the user score. Random because they're usually funnier. All right. Written and directed by Stephen Sommers, The Mummy would like to make you shudder, but tries to do so without ever letting go of its jocular inconsequentiality. I agree with that. Yeah, it's very silly. You guys talked about the horror aspect, and I don't like to like deal in genre that much.
Yeah.
Like just because it's such a personal feeling sort of thing. I don't get really any horror from this movie. I understand that there are horror
Listed, like,
elements.
8 things.
Yeah, but none of them are remotely scary because Brendan Fraser just screams at him in a very funny way, and that's that. And at no point did I feel any tension. The scariest thing about this movie is the concept of the scarabs.
The Beatles. I mean, they're not scary now, but I distinctly remember when I was a kid, the Beatles fucked me up
Yeah,
pretty
crawling
hard.
under your
I'm not a
skin
kid
and
now.
eat
I know,
into
I'm
your
just
brain.
saying.
When I was a kid, I thought it was cool too, and I still think it's kind of a cool idea.
Yeah.
But it doesn't scare me. It doesn't granted, not a lot of things do anymore when it comes to movies. We've seen a lot,
Mhm.
but it also just doesn't strike me as horror because there's always like a pithy joke that follows all of them. It seems like.
I mean,
most of it.
after watching a Serbian film, like, is anything scary anymore? No.
I mean, let's not open up that particular sarcophagus. Let's move on to the audience score here. We'll start with Bob this time. There are over 250,000 ratings for this for the audience, so significant portion more.
Yeah.
What do you think, Bob?
It's with that many people weighing in, it's got to be somewhat closer to the middle, I would think. You said it was 61 for the critics, right?
61, yeah.
Okay, I'll go a little bit lower. Give me a 58, please.
58. Okay. Soju, how you feeling about it?
No, more people like it than that. Give me the 60.
60?
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say 9.
Yeah, I was waiting for the
No.
9 too.
I thought you had a dramatic pregnant pause there.
waiting.
Nine dudes.
Can't get pregnant with a 69. Dudes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes. So Soju's going to take this one. And again, you guys are not super close. This is you're 15 off 75%. So
Oh shit, that was my OG rating.
Yeah. 3/4 of the audience did like this movie. And you know, that stands to reason with its box office take, which I understand was quite huge.
Oh yeah, it's
so-
huge.
Massive.
There you go.
Yeah. Can I get a hell yeet?
I'll give you a hell yeah if you give me a hell ski.
Hell ski.
Hell
Let-
yeah.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Hell ski. Look at that.
I like your
Trust.
All right, let's move on.
All right, let's get into some trivia.
It's totally time for trivia.
Juice, lay it on us.
All right, so there is a shit ton of trivia for this one. Just on IMDb alone, there was 138 pieces, and I'm gonna like bump it over to Bob at one point because he's got some stuff I couldn't quite find on here, but some fun ones. With the exception of a loincloth, a few pieces of jewelry, and pasties. The actress who plays Anoxona Moon's costume consists entirely of body paint, which took 4 hours to apply. Whoa.
Those are ancient Egyptian pasties.
Whoa.
Made of camel hide.
Woo!
Yeah.
Wee!
And camel spit.
So talking about Brendan Fraser and, you know, the pains he suffered from doing action movies, this seems absolutely ridiculous. And I hope somebody got their fucking ass fired and beat a little bit, but
Dang.
just a little bit. Brendan Fraser nearly died during a scene where his character is hanged. Rachel Weisz remembered Fraser stopped breathing and had to be resuscitated. Like,
Jesus
what?
Christ.
What? There should, like, oh my
I mean,
God.
Yeah, that'll get you
people dying
fired.
on set. That does happen from time to time, and it's like it's never justified, obviously. But
Yeah.
holy shit, like that. If you're doing a hanging scene, you would think that that's been done since the fucking 20s and shit.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I
can't
mean, they
figure
did it
that
in
shit out
fucking
sometimes.
House on Haunted Hill and had no fucking
Yeah.
problem with that shit.
They do it in all kinds of. What the fuck? That
Professional.
pisses me off.
William Castle is a damn professional.
All right, so this next piece of trivia is going to have the nerds, including myself, clamoring for an uncut version. We can make it happen. Let's get on it.
That's the nerd whale.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I'll lead the charge.
Wow.
The white nightgown Evelyn wore when the ship was attacked became transparent when it got wet and had to be digitally painted white during post-production so the film could keep its PG-13 rating. This movie almost got half star for the
Jeez.
Yabos.
So is that then -1/2 star because they redacted
Well,
the Yabos?
that
It's
is-
on the cutting room floor.
That is
Release the
unfortunate, but they
cut.
just missed an opportunity to gain a half star.
Would have put you back up to a
Isn't
4.
Penetrating
Yeah.
you. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
God damn. What was I even talking about when I said that?
I don't,
I don't
know.
remember.
Nobody does.
Somebody does.
Mhm.
The opening voiceover was originally intended to be read by Imhotep. But the director, Stephen Summers, later realized that Imhotep wouldn't be able to speak English. And so he gave the voiceover to that other guy instead, who also is Egyptian, but I guess more in the modern day. So it's okay. Whatever.
I
They're
mean, he does-
they're
he
so
doesn't speak
much.
English, like, okay.
Yeah.
And what? That doesn't stop anything else from this movie from happening.
Yeah, I don't know. Every now and then I think, hey, they actually like thought some of this out. And I think that's one of those pieces where they actually, thought stuff out. Bob, I'm gonna swing it over to you. You had a couple things you wanted to mention that were quite interesting.
Yeah, I found a couple interesting little bits of trivia. So before Stephen Summers signed on to write and direct this movie, there was a whole host of very well-known horror movie directors that were signed on. It started off with Clive Barker. He was originally attached to write and direct this movie.
That could have been killer.
It would have been 3 hours and full of Muppets.
Full of Muppets.
Muppets.
Are you?
It was a.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Unsurprisingly, his version was too violent for the studio.
That hurts my heart to hear that. I would much rather watch a Nightbreed than the Mummy again.
It was going to revolve around a contemporary art museum, which turns out to be run by some cultists trying to reanimate mummies. So that didn't work out. Then it got
I don't love that. Though.
it got handed off to Joe Dante, who was the next choice,
Whoa.
who was going to have a brooding Daniel Day-Lewis as the star, the mummy.
Damn.
That ended up not working out.
God, I want to see these movies.
I know, man. It then went over to George Romero, and he was going to do something that I guess was somehow more along the lines of Night of the Living Dead, involving like Ramses II. That didn't work out. It was then handed over to Mick Garris, who was going to
God
direct.
damn.
That didn't work. So then they offered it to Wes Craven, who just turned it down. I guess he wasn't interested in it. And then it finally landed with Stephen Summers. who convinced them to give him a shitload more money, actually. So all the previous directors that I just named were going to get somewhere around like a $15 million budget, allegedly,
I see.
to do the movie. Yeah, it was going to be smaller, more intimate, sort of like more akin to the original Mummy, I guess, but just updated. And then Steven Sommers came in and was like, no, I want to do like a mega action adventure blockbuster with a mummy in it, basically. And they were like, okay, tight. We're going to give you $80 million for this.
That's
now.
called telling the studio what they want to hear out of the
Yeah, for sure. So he landed the gig, and obviously we got what we got from that. It on an $80 million budget, it grossed $416 million worldwide, which of course led to them making 2 sequels and then the whole Scorpion King bullshit. But the 2 Mummy sequels in and of themselves each made over $400 million a piece.
Wow.
Fucking damn. No
Yeah.
wonder there's direct-to-video.
I mean, they so this franchise grossed over $1 billion, which is, you know,
Damn.
fucking tight.
I love that second one too. That second one was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it so long. I really
It's the
don't
one
remember it.
Released, weirdly.
Yeah, I'd have to revisit it.
They've got like a kid. He puts on this bracelet. He's like gonna
Mhm.
die. I don't want to do spoilers.
He's like gonna die.
He's like,
He's
totally
probably
dead.
gonna die.
baby.
all right. The only other bit of trivia I wanted to mention is the whenever they were filming the scenes out in the desert, the crew had to concoct some sort of like drink. I guess it was like a Gatorade-ish sort of thing that they had to consume every 2 hours to keep them from passing out due to the heat.
Damn.
And that's all.
Christ.
Yeah, that concludes our
That-
trivia.
All this huge budget they got, and they can't fucking like, I don't know. It's you can get a trailer out there if you really want to. Like, you
Yeah,
can get
I'm
it.
sure they had at least a covering. Like, I don't know, but yeah, that's a decent budget for sure. Don't want people falling out on your
Yeah,
fucking.
people are getting almost hung and having to drink fucking electrolyte cocktails just to stay alive. I don't know, man. Use some of your money on that shit a little more. My opinion.
Electrofright. Let's go ahead and talk Cooter of the Week.
Straight chillin'.
Gooder of the week.
Juice, what is a Cooter? Why are we hunting them?
Cooter's character type and a straight shown exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered Cooter. We want the one with the most points. 5 points are manipulation, sexual deviance, smug arrogance, overall looking attire, and overall patheticness. Boys, I feel like there's quite a few contenders this week. Let me go ahead and start with nominating what's his Benny? Is that
Yeah.
his name? Benny? Let's start
Benny's
with
the
Benny.
one that gives off the strongest vibe.
I think
Benny.
Benny might be a solid Cooter. And I'm gonna start with one we hardly ever start with. Overall patheticness. Damn, if this dude isn't pathetic, it like embodies that point almost. He will do anything to kind of get ahead, but he's never really ahead.
He's not clever enough to stay ahead.
Yeah, he's very stupid and conniving and just low life. I don't know. He embodies pathetic. He's always running away. He's like the guy
He lies
who
constantly.
1 second is very like petrified, and as soon as he sucks up to be safe, then he starts throwing his weight around. He's
exactly. He's very much like a Wormtail type figure.
yeah, so that's where the smug arrogance comes in. There's definitely several cases of smug arrogance.
My favorite Benny moment in this movie, which lends itself strongly to manipulation, is when he's being approached by Imhotep and he's using all the different languages, and then he pulls out like every religious trinket possible from his.
That's pretty good.
That's a pretty good bit. I love
That is a pretty good bit. I like how he knows like all the prayers and all the different
and
languages.
What stops him is he starts speaking in Hebrew, and the guy's like, I think it's Hebrew, and he's like, the language of the slaves. Like, I don't know. To me, that's both true and also like.
I like
it just seems
I
a
like
really
that they let him do like
tactical-
4 of them because he's got like a Buddha. He does a Hindu one before he does the Christian prayer, and that was a good bit.
So he's hitting patheticness, he's hitting manipulation, he's hitting smug arrogance, sexual deviancy. Not that we see, I don't think. Is there?
I feel like he probably made some kind of offhanded comment towards the woman. He did. I know. I like this scene where I don't know if it's sexual deviance, but when they're on the boat and they're talking, and he's like, "What are you doing here, O'Connell?" And he's like, "You see that girl over there? You know, she saved my life." And he's like, "You always had more balls than brains, O'Connell." And he just chokes on. I don't know. I like that exchange.
What about his mustache for the attire?
Ooh, yeah, that
And
mustache.
the mustache fez, and there's a few people with the fez. If you're wearing a fez in this movie, it's a pretty good guess that you're a bit of a cooter. Because the other guy who wears one is whatever, the Egyptologist who's played by the dad from Jumanji, whatever his name is.
Oh, yeah.
He's like in a bunch of stuff from the 90s, and like I really like that actor. He's a good character actor, but he is the one that gives the, you know, who creates the offset for the feminist message or whatever of like, see, women can do it too. And he's like he's the voice piece of the patriarchy in this movie to some extent, where he's like, they're led by a woman, what could they possibly find? And of course he fucks up, but then also she kind of fucks up.
Yeah.
I did kind of like that, where it was like it served to like see like, oh, she's unfairly maligned, but also kind of fairly, because she's a fucking scatterbrained goofball who releases a goddamn curse.
Reads from the Book of the Dead.
Yeah, she's fucking regular goddamn Ash Williams.
So yeah, Benny, he hits pretty strong.
Yeah, Benny is a cooter out. I think maybe there's somebody better. I don't know. How I
You
feel
do?
about emo.
What do you
Imhotep?
think about Imhotep? Is what I was thinking.
All
too.
right. Oh, Emotep himself.
Imhotep. Ooh,
Emotep.
haircut. I
Yeah.
would love to see the band called Emotep, which is just people dressed like these characters with swoopy haircuts.
That would be dope.
I would love
Copywritten by Straight Chillin'. Emotep. He hits on the sexual
arrogance.
deviance, I guess.
Well, he steals Pharaoh's lady and
Yeah,
murders
but
Pharaoh.
she's about it though.
Yeah,
It's not unwilling.
It's a
It's-
forbidden love thing, which I
It,
don't.
yeah, that like
And it's also his mistress, not his wife. So I mean, that might
that's true.
say more about Pharaoh than it does about.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a forbidden love thing, but it also like spawns murder. So like
Yeah.
they murder because of the
I would
love.
argue it's not deviant, but it's pathetic, because he carries that torch
Yeah.
for fucking ever and ever, and it's
Damn, dude.
like, I don't know. It's just maybe I'm not the romantic type, but if somebody caused me to be buried alive for
Randy-
1,000 years, I don't know that I would have the same feelings at the end of that. 1,000
Randy,
years.
you just would not understand the lyrics of the band Emotep. Then it's not for you.
You know what?
You're not emo enough.
I disagree. I would just like it ironically.
Maybe so. You start getting the comb over real hard.
I don't know. I think it's a little pathetic, but
So pathetic. I don't think he hits
manipulation
sexual
certainly.
Yeah, I mean, he-
deviancy qualifies.
I would say manipulation.
Yeah, I agree.
There's that scene where they're manipulating that guy.
He forces Benny to work for him, basically.
Yeah. And there's that scene where they're manipulating the guy who has no eyes and tongue. There's no need for them to do
Yeah,
that. He
yeah,
just
that's
sucks
fucked
everybody
up.
else dry.
Yeah, he's just for the thrill.
Yeah, he's just fucking with them.
Maybe he's too weak at that point if you want to be generous with it, but I'm not going to be.
maybe smug arrogance, I would say.
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
that's his peak point, I think.
Yeah. So he hits.
Who-
I don't
if you-
think he's higher than Benny.
I don't think he is either, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Benny feels like a stronger cooter.
He definitely had, like, Benny has the cooter vibe, and that's like the X factor that you can't even really talk about
Yeah.
because it's all very much a gut feeling. Benny
Yeah.
hits the cooter feel.
Well, and this
Very-
is something I like about this 90s movie because it has that cooter, that kind of OG cooter that we talk about. That's not the villain. You know, like Bob says, like these B-side villains
Well, they're the
that
Bebop and
you-
Rocksteady.
that you
Yeah.
don't like. They're really smarmy and pathetic and greasy and like, I don't know, that you are looking to die and you're looking for them to get killed. And I think Benny hits that pretty good.
I think so. And like I cannot remember his name, but the warden guy too. He's just like done really quickly because they need fodder. There's so many characters in this movie that are very clearly red shirts and are not worth getting
Yeah.
invested in.
Now the warden, he does have some sexual demons because he tries to
Yes.
leverage Evie to sleep with them to save O'Connell.
Yeah.
He's I would say he's manipulative, or
Oh,
well,
yeah.
maybe he's smug arrogance because of the way he throws his kind of warden weight around a little bit. They say
I think
he
he's-
like smells real bad, which could fall into like the pathetic thing, maybe.
I think that would fall into look attire. I guess it's
maybe,
like,
yeah.
more like part of his appearance is that he's stinky.
Yeah.
But he's like, this isn't on there, but like I don't know. Maybe it's time for a sixth rung. I don't know. But also
Oh, boy.
like both he and Benny are both like incredibly money grubbing. You know what I mean? They're after
yeah.
money.
Greedy.
You know what I mean? Greedy. That's the word I'm
Greed,
looking for.
yeah.
Yeah.
That could fall into patheticness, I think.
It
Yeah.
could be. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
well, Benny dies trying to get fucking treasure.
That's
and
true.
Let's
so
just-
does, and actually,
let's-
so does Warden.
Let's just download the 7 deadlies into our cooter hunting database, and then we'll just go from those
Is
7.
being pathetic a 7 deadly sin now?
Greediness is
Is that is that
Greed?
amendment passed?
greed. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm just sexual
I-
deviance, the deadliest of all.
The
sins.
deadliest of all sins. Fornicating with your neighbor. I think Benny is the winner this week.
I think so.
Benny
He just
feels,
feels
right,
right.
as Cooter of the Week.
Benny
Yeah,
just feels right.
Feels right to book him. So let's do it.
Book him, boys.
We got him. Book him.
We
Lock him
got
up.
Alechi, baby.
Oh,
See ya,
we-
Benny.
We got him.
All right, let's talk about what we've been watching this week.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
What we've been watching these weeks, really. I feel like it's been a couple
Yeah, we
weeks since did
skipped
it.
this
Like
segment
4
like
weeks.
2 weeks in a row.
Buckle up, motherfuckers. We've been watching a lot. Randy, why don't you kick us off? What you been watching?
Well, I'm going to be the exception to that rule because I've been so goddamn busy. I have seen very, very little by comparison. This is about as much as I would watch in a normal week, and it's over the course of 3. So, for me, Becky expressed an interest in doing something which I never expected to hear, which is to watch through the entirety of the Marvel Cinematic Universe chronologically.
Wow.
You know, she was never that into it, but once, we watched Endgame or whatever, and she kind of liked that. And then eventually she started wanting to like see where all that came from or whatever. So started with Captain America, then Captain Marvel, did Iron Man 1 and 2. So over the last 3 weeks, we've watched those. And I will say that those early ones, for the most part, don't do it for me. Iron Man 1 is okay.
Yeah,
People
Captain
seem to
America,
give it
I
more.
agree.
No, I actually think Captain America 1 is the best of that batch.
Oh,
of those
really?
4.
Oh.
Yeah. Because I don't know. I think that part of it is again setting. Like I'm just partial to like the idea.
that makes
And I
sense.
also I have such a negative association for very arrogant people. Like I don't like rooting for the extremely arrogant. And Steve Rogers is the exact opposite of that. So I think maybe it's by comparison that I see Steve Rogers being like the ultimate good guy and just being like, this feels good. Like it feels
You
good to
love
root
John
for this
Locke,
guy.
though. So I mean, where does that leave you, Randy?
Are you talking about Lost, the show I haven't seen for like 10 years? Okay, let's go back to our
Yeah.
high
That's
school
a whole
opinions.
nother show,
That's
man.
how well I know you.
Okay, all right. That's such a weird card to pull right now. We have to go back. Anyway, so other than that, I did watch Bad Trip, the what's his fucking name? Eric Andre movie that was made by Jeff Tremaine and that Jackass crew, the Bad Grandpa crew.
How was it?
It was good. It's like it fits right into that mold, so it's not like a
Mhm.
stellar movie or anything, and they insert a narrative into a prank-based movie. But what's
Mhm.
interesting about it, and I don't know a ton about Eric Andre beyond his reputation for his show being kind of in the Tim and Eric vein, of like crazy shit going on, sometimes really gross out and all that stuff. It's a lot like nicer than I expected it to be. You know what I mean? It's not like even Bad Grandpa was more mean-spirited than this movie, and that movie wasn't very bad mean-spirited, I wouldn't say. It's all just very like general pranks, and the butt of the joke is always Eric Andre or one of the actors in the film. So it's just fun to see people's reactions to it. And the best part of the movie, as always, is the credits where they show people finding out what's going on, and like it's just so fun in that regard. I don't know. I like it. It's not gonna like. I don't know how well I'll remember it. It's not going to be the game changer of that formula like Borat was, I wouldn't think, but it's good. I enjoyed it.
Is that on Netflix?
I think it's a Netflix original, but yes, it's on Netflix for
Okay,
sure.
cool.
And then the only other thing I have written down here, which is not a movie at all, it's just something I wanted to bring up because it was interesting to me. I watched a YouTube video by an essayist called Yara Zaid, I think that's her name, talking about Brittany Murphy, who is not a person that I've thought about very much since her passing in like whatever mid 2000s or something like that. And it was basically kind of like this thing that was very much in the vein of what we're talking about with Brendan Fraser, where people whose reputations and limelight have suffered for one reason or another, or had in her case, and eventually like Brittany Murphy passed away or whatever, like I said. So it was just kind of like a redemption thing where it was like saying all these interesting things about how she was treated by the press, how she was treated like this party girl who had like a pill addiction and all this shit. And none of that was even true. And she got blackballed from a lot of acting gigs for that reason and treated like a dumb airhead. But she has a lot of really fucking good performances that are pretty diverse. So I don't know. It made a pretty strong case for that. And I was into it, and it made me curious to watch movies that I otherwise wouldn't have ever watched, probably like Uptown Girls with fucking Brittany Murphy and Dakota Fanning, which is very much like a, like a slumber party type movie. You know what I mean? It's female centric sort of thing, and it's just not one that I ever was interested in. But I don't know. It just made a strong case. I felt really bad for Brittany Murphy at the end of it, and I'm getting a lot of that recently. And that whole Britney Spears thing that's going on, I haven't watched any of the documentaries centering around that, but she has had a huge resurgence, like a huge reclamation of her identity after years of being known as the one who went crazy and shaved her head and all this shit, and was tabloid fodder forever. I don't know. I just starting to feel really fucking bad the way we treat these people, even though they're like many of them are really well paid and all that sort of thing. People still get away with doing all kinds of fucked up shit to celebrities, and it's fucked up. That's all I want to bring up. So
Randy, did I ever watch Cherry Falls with you?
Yeah, we watched it together.
Okay, I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember. Were you there, Juice, for that? It's a Brittany Murphy slasher movie very much. 2000.
No, I didn't see that.
Okay, yeah, it's like it's a goofy slasher movie where like the whole premise of the movie is like the killer is only killing virgins, and like if you want to stay alive and be safe, you have to lose your virginity, and it's like a high school full of kids just trying to bang each other to stay alive. Yeah, it's goofy, it's silly, but it's a movie with Brittany Murphy in it. And you were talking about her, made me think of it. I want to
rewatch that.
Years. Me too. I remember enjoying it, but it's like it's got some problematic stuff for sure. But
does it? Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Like virgins.
No, there's like
unwelcome.
I don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, check out Cherry Falls if you want some Brittany Murphy. Juice, what you been watching?
A lot of things. I finally watched The Blackcoat's Daughter. Never seen it before.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I like that one too much.
I'm with you.
Yeah, me too. Actually.
Yeah.
Not a big fan.
Definitely.
There's no diversity on this panel.
Lower on.
Yeah,
there is. You didn't like The Mummy, Randy.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's a big divergence we have. No. I agree.
Anyways, I just it fell lower on the A24 list for me for sure. I was curious. There was this list that came out that was, kind of ranking all of the A24 specifically horror themed movies, which they didn't put Ex Machina on, and I thought that was interesting.
It's a thriller, isn't it? Jace?
It is a thriller, but I mean, I don't know. They put some kind of comedies on there. One of them's like a horror comedy, so I don't know. Whatever.
I don't know. That movie to me, like, I think I said this on the Slack at one point, but that movie to me seems the most like a movie trying to be an A24 movie.
Yeah, I think Bob said that too. Yeah, but I've heard that line before. Yeah, so and maybe you said it. Yeah,
I don't know. I definitely said it at one point, but I don't know if it was to you guys.
Yeah, I agree. It's Yeah.
But
You
it
know
got
what?
a
I want
crazy
the one
buzz.
another thing since we were talking about in Saint Maud, that this is another one. I don't want to do any kind of crazy spoilers, but it has something to do with the devil, and they show the devil in this one, similar to how they do kind of in other A24 movies that we've talked about. It looks so stupid to me. The devil in A20 or no, in the Black Coat's Daughter was the dumbest fucking one. I was like, what the shit? If y'all remember, look that shit up. It's dumb. It was fucking dumb. It pissed me off a little bit how dumb it was. Anyways, I watched that. What else did I watch? I watched Soul from Pixar. It came out just at Christmas time. I finally got to watch that. It's good, man. Oh, Pixar, they'll hit you in the soul.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I liked it. I finished watching that Harley Quinn show. I liked it a lot. It was really funny. I really liked it actually. I finished season 2 of the Great British Bake Off. Or no, the Great British Baking Show, whatever that show. I've been watching some Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown. Shit is dope.
Classic. I fucking love it.
So good. I feel like I've watched. Me and Mob started watching more. Oh, I watched Mortal Kombat. We haven't talked about it since it came out. Stupid. It's stupid.
It's not all that bad, but yeah, it is stupid.
Yeah, it's not too good.
It's Mortal
Watch
Kombat.
Oh my,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
tired of that. So
I
what?
know you are.
It's-
Anything
Kombat
can be
is
good.
More than anything, yeah, but more than anything else, that wouldn't be a divergence from every other Mortal Kombat property to have it be like
There's only been
story-wise
2.
There's a million games and they make
Oh,
stories and they all
games.
suck. Like that's what it's based
well.
on. It's based on that game that central premise is people punching each other. And
Then
then they
why
just
even make a movie if you can't? I mean,
I
if-
agree.
Money.
yeah.
I would
Just-
not advocate for this movie.
I mean, a movie is supposed to be driven by
expecting it to be
a
good.
story. So if you're gonna take a game that already like does bloody fights and just to put in a movie to have bloody fights, then why the fuck are you making a movie? If
I
you're gonna
agree,
do it,
but
do
it's-
it good.
But if it exists, it exists, and
Yeah.
if I'm going to watch it, I'm going to expect it to be in keeping
Yeah.
with the rest of the franchise.
Yeah. I didn't like it. What else? A lot, but I'll pass it. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, so I will go to Bob. Bob, what you been watching?
A lot of shit. I watched Falcon Winter Soldier.
Oh,
on
and that
Disney
I watched
Plus.
that too. Yeah.
I there's a lot of Marvel movies that I have not seen yet. So some of the like setup of this series was lost on me a little bit. But I really dug this show. It was entertaining. The ending like really went for some sort of like real world grounded stuff in a way that I don't expect to see from Marvel really. So that caught me by surprise in a good way. I thought it ended really well. And I'm excited to see like the next Captain America movie should they make one, which I don't know if they are or not, but that'd be pretty dope to see. Enjoyed that a good bit. I watched like a lot of superhero shit actually. So I watched Captain Marvel for the first time. Definitely enjoyed that. Some solid comedy. The the blockbuster nod. I thought that was pretty dope.
That movie does like just reference humor. It seems like
It is a lot of reference humor for sure. It
and
really
it's like
is.
not really serving any purpose. Like she fell on a blockbuster because people like to think about Blockbuster,
True. That is 100% correct.
and then they
Uh.
reference Radio Shack, and it's for the same reason.
Yeah, it's silly humor. Also, like, didn't expect it to be quite so like futuristic. I don't know. Like Marvel stories are fine, generally speaking. I don't expect a whole lot out of them other than just like it's a popcorn movie, really. It services what you would expect from a popcorn movie. I enjoyed it on that level. Also watched Black Panther for the first time.
Oh no shit!
Yeah,
That's one of the better ones in my opinion.
yeah, I would agree. There's a lot of like really fantastic characters that are like fleshed out. And as I'm watching it, like every character that pops up is like, oh yeah, I know her, I know him from a Jordan Peele joint. Like I just want to like go watch Get Out and Us again now. Like after watching that movie. Also, they like just announced the sequel for that. Wakanda Forever. So I'm stoked about that after having finally watched Black Panther. Also revisited the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. I just been like jonesing to rewatch those movies for some reason. Enjoyable. I've seen it a handful of times. It holds up. It's goofy. Also, I started watching that QAnon docu series on HBO that you were talking about, Randy.
Yeah.
And it's like I watched the first 3 episodes today, like back to back, and just like morbid curiosity. Like I couldn't turn it off.
Oh, I know.
I just couldn't turn it off, man. That shit is just nuts.
It's super frustrating to watch for a number of reasons. I've said before that I thought it wasn't quite damning enough for my tastes, and I stand by that. But also, it's like, you gotta know more. Like you just kind of, it's very, very easy to get sucked into wanting to know more, which I guess is kind of the whole fucking point, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. It's baffling. It's fucking stunning. It in a fucked up way, in a bad way, not in a good way.
It does not leave you feeling good about the world.
I haven't finished it, so I don't know how they end it.
Well,
but
at no point does it.
Okay, well that kind of sucks. Well, fuck. I don't know. I'm
finish it though. Finish it.
Yeah,
finish it.
I'm enjoying the ride as much as you can and enjoy.
It's only like 6
something
episodes,
like this.
So.
Is it? Oh, I'm like halfway.
Yeah, you're more than halfway, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you have questions about like what the fuck QAnon is, then check it out, and it will inform you on that level. I already had like a base knowledge, and it's sort of building from that for me. It's I don't know. It's useful to know. So when someone references QAnon, you know exactly what the fuck they're talking about, because I guess this is a thing that's going to be around for a minute. Hopefully not too fucking long. Anyway, that's interesting. If you want something a little more serious, that's all I've been watching. That's about it. Let's end on a really fucked up, sad note. We got one more segment. Let's jump over into our hotline screams.
Hotline scream.
If you are listening and would like to call and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, you can hit us up at 904-638-3231. We have 2 voicemails this week and 1 email, actually. The first person who called in, I don't know who it is. It's short and sweet. Let's take a listen.
Here we go.
Get off my train!
Get off my train.
Get off it.
Does anybody know where that's from?
I think that's a corruption of a Harrison Ford line.
That's what we were thinking too. But we were like, why does that even make sense?
I don't know. I feel like maybe that's a joke we made at some point.
We were thinking that too. But I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
We say a lot of shit. Can't remember it all.
Dude, most of it's not worth remembering, if we're being honest about it. But
let's be honest for a second.
Just for a second. Can I be real a minute? It's not worth it.
Thanks for calling in and screaming.
Yeah. If anybody else wants to call in with some Harrison Ford corrupted lines, please do. I would love to hear more 5-second voicemails. Like
Hell yeah. Next up, we're going to hear from Cole. See what he has to say.
Hey guys, it's Cole calling again. Just wanted to start off by saying, let me turn you on, Randy, and say no more about that. Next, I wanted to call in about Rocky, of course, and I stand by that. Rocky is totally a perfect series. I even said it with the exception of 5 because it pissed me off so much, but then the last 20 minutes makes it all worth it. So. And the one you're referring to with the robot is Rocky 4, and it's very symbolic, showing how on top of the world Rocky is, and it could all be taken away from him. Very symbolic. But I would also like to classify Rocky 4 as a horror movie. Because the first time I watched it, I was genuinely scared for Rocky's life. And it's quite an emotional roller coaster. So if and when you guys want to review Rocky 4 on your horror podcast, feel free to invite me on. Well, I'd be more than happy to. Now, with your actual prompt about the thrillers, I don't really have an example. I just wanted to say, I kind of hate the term thrillers, and it's never a horror fan, obviously. It's the normies, as you would say. But I've always found that basically if a horror movie is good, then people call it a thriller. So as soon as I hear that term, it kind of gets under my skin a little bit. But anyways, keep chilling, guys. Thanks. Bye.
Well, a lot to unpack there. I didn't hear what he said, but I guess he's upset with my dissing of the Rocky franchise. And I'll come clean on that. Sorry, what were you gonna say, Bob?
Oh no, finish your Rocky train of thought. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, so I just let me be clear about this. I have never seen the entirety of any Rocky film, so I'm not coming from an informed or a principled stance by any means. If you love them, I'm sure there's plenty to love on some level, but all I know is I've seen bits of Rocky 1 and it seems like a decent enough movie. And I know the reputation for the rest of the franchise is not as good in general. And the only other bit that I've seen is a piece with a robot, which, okay, sure, it's symbolic of having it all and it can all be taken away, as you say. But I feel that maybe there's another way of saying that without introducing Rosie the goddamn robot. Just my personal feeling on that matter. If it's a horror movie, though, I am interested in that concept. So.
Never seen a Rocky movie myself. I can't weigh in here.
I don't know if I have seen one like completely, and if I have, I couldn't remember it. So sorry about that.
No diversity.
I wanted to touch on the first thing Cole was talking about, which is how to turn Randy on, which if you recall, Randy said in Air of Mystery is what gets his motor revving.
Is that what he said? I couldn't tell what he said in that part.
Well, he didn't say anything because that's the joke, the mystery. So how erect are you right now, Randy?
Well, now that I know that there's an Air of Mystery, it's 6 to midnight, of course.
Yeah, that's what we thought.
I'm gonna get erected.
Randy Dunn got erected. Yeah, as far as like thrillers go, I guess he didn't have like a solid example. So that was one of the questions that we posed. I don't know if it was last week. I guess it was last week. As an example of like a horror movie that somebody might refer to as a thriller.
Yeah.
Which is like, Silence of the Lambs gets called a thriller. Seven gets called a thriller. A lot of like the stuff that has some sort of like police procedural aspect to it gets referred to as being like a thriller, but also like anything that has garnered some sort of like positive press or like won any awards always gets labeled a thriller too.
I almost think that's
for many years.
That's almost like tainting the thriller brand almost more than anything, because I always thought of a thriller
brand.
Well, I always thought of a thriller as a movie that's a drama. It's essentially a drama, but with a lot, like, let's say, a quarter entry of horror splashed in. That was kind of always, and maybe more, maybe
so it's a horror cocktail.
Yeah, it's a bit of a horror cocktail. But with the main source being the drama, with the spice being kind of the horror element. That's how I always thought about it. Where, your main base, that solid drama, you got like interesting dialogues, real deep dialogues, very story based, linear, kind of following this plot. A lot of them happen to be kind of like cop dramas, but not exclusively. Like we were talking about Ex Machina, that's kind of a thriller where the spice of it, the thing that makes it like really like intriguing and it kind of stand out from just a regular drama is that horror element. That's what I always thought a thriller as, kind of.
That I hear what you're saying and I agree with it, but also like what you just described is just a good horror movie. Like what about The Exorcist? What about like Poltergeist?
Well, no, I mean, not if you take the idea of it being like, I know this is ridiculous, but at a base of like 75% drama, 25% horror. That's not The Exorcist.
This is the exact reason that I hate genre bending so much.
Yeah. Well, drawing the line is sort of insane, but
that's just how I see it, I guess.
Without quality,
it's such a moving target.
without quality drama, you have a shit film, regardless of anything. You know, like
Or
whatever
comedy.
kind of movie you're trying to make.
That's not a fully 100% true statement. I know what you're saying generally, but
Yeah, I mean, like if like a comedy will only be enhanced if there's like solid drama to back it up, so that you can connect with the
Jackass is
characters.
different.
Like, well, yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, I guess there are outliers, but
there's
like
always
that's
exceptions to everything, and that's kind of the problem. Is everybody wants to put everything into a clean slot where everything fits
Yeah.
perfectly, and that just doesn't exist. And I don't like trying to draw a line that I know will be erased the moment somebody thinks of an exception.
yeah, like I don't know, like The Conjuring. Like if the Warrens were just terribly acted and like you didn't really care about the actors.
See, that's where I would almost flip it though. That's
Yeah.
like at least 50-50, probably 75 horror, 25 drama, because most of the scenes are based around something horrific.
Yeah, I mean, so that I guess maybe one of the biggest distinctions there would be like the setup and the delivery of a jump scare.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Or like
thrillers-
music choices, because we talked about like with Jurassic Park, how we
Right.
said the difference between Jurassic Park and Jaws is this adventure theme that's playing. And I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of horror themes have.
That's
like-
part of the setup, I would say.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So I mean, there's
if you remove that-
distinctions.
Yeah, there are, but the drama
I think
enhances
really the thing is like
the
when
story.
people
You know,
think of the word horror and they think of the word drama, they think about specific like 2 or 3 to 2 to 10 examples of of movies, and then it just doesn't. You can't really hold all movies in your head at the same time and have them
Well-
cleanly delineated in a way that's satisfying to everyone's sensibilities. So to me, it just
yeah.
Well, and to me, to be fair though, when I'm thinking of thrillers, it's always as a like horror subgenre, because to me, you
Mhm.
can't have a thriller without a horror element. That's what I was saying. It's like the spice. It's like
Yeah.
what makes it different than like, just a regular old cop drama. It's got that horror spice. It's got that like a fear that they're preying on. It's just how they set it up, and what a majority of the scenes are focused on or delivering are not horror based.
So it's
that's
just
how I feel about the Mummy. though.
less scary. So less scares, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
It's-
The
well,
focus
it's
is
still
not the
tension.
scare.
I think thrillers. I mean, if I'm going to put a fine point on it, which I know is going to be erased, my delineation would probably be that you have a tension. You have an ongoing tension throughout the film with some horror elements splashed in there, but it's not like the Mummy has a horror element splashed in there, but it's not a tension movie, so it's not a thriller.
Yeah,
You know
it's
what I mean?
not based
Seven is
on drama.
fully
yeah.
tensioned,
Mhm.
you know. and then
Full
there's
tension, bish.
full tension. So I mean, that's what's where the thrills come from. It's you
Going
being tense, and then them
full
releasing the tension at some point or another, and then you getting back to the tension.
Oh, the sweet release of that tension.
Yeah, man, it's a mess, that tension for sure.
Huge mess.
It's everywhere.
Thanks for calling in, Cole. Definitely a good time hearing from you. Again, if you want to call in, leave a voicemail, hit us up at 904-638-3231. I kind of want to pose a question for next week. Like what, we talked about a little bit here on this episode about like action adventure horror. Like what's an action adventure horror movie that you dig? Like, there's not a ton of them that I can think of anyways. But maybe some of the listeners have some choice cuts.
You could argue a lot of movies that I think of as just horror movies because it's simpler are like Tremors, for fuck's sake. Like you could
Mhm.
think of that. You could,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
shit like that, like Child's Play to some extent, like some
Jurassic
of the,
Park.
some of the
About Child's
franchise,
Play.
maybe not the first one.
Jurassic Park. If you consider
Sure.
Jurassic Park a horror movie, then yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing is like if you dig through, you'll find examples that'll fit that just as
Yeah.
easily as they fit there.
Well, let's see what
you're
people
being
have to
John
say
about.
about
Yeah,
it.
and that's probably a personal like delineation. Like
Okay, how about
it
this?
depends.
What's a movie that most people consider horror that you do not? Is that about
Isn't that kind of what we just asked?
I
Well,
would
it's-
like to know
yeah.
about some secret like action horror too, because I think there is a kind of a
Okay.
difference.
Well,
I could see
whatever.
maybe Tremors being on that line.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
whatever? That's fine.
I don't know. It's on theme, anyways.
We can do
Cool.
both. There's room for two.
That's true.
questions.
We've
You don't
had
need to prompt. People can call and say whatever the fuck they want.
that's
so-
true, and we've had like
It's not
3 and
like-
4 questions before.
Let's go ahead and have some kinks roll in.
Yeah, call in and say whatever the fuck you want. Turn Randy on. That's really what we want.
And that
Turn me
segues
on.
into our email. Ready,
Oh
guys?
yeah. I forgot the fucking email. Go ahead, just read
We
it.
have one email. I will read it because it is addressed to. It starts, Bob,
Yeah.
we all know the legend of your daddy kink. We witnessed its birth, then watched it bloom. We saw you struggle through anger. Sorry, there's going to be a couple typos in here. Through anger, denial, and your resentful embrace with acceptance. But accepting oneself is not knowing oneself. So, Bob, what exactly is it about daddies that takes your elevator to the penthouse? Let's help you discover which flavor of Flavor Aid gets you in line at Jonestown, shall we?
That went from Confucius to Howard Stern in a snap.
All right.
Brilliant.
So he prompts some questions. A perfectly groomed and oiled rectangle mustache, the explosive starting crack of a push mower, a dapper jean shorts New Balance combo showcasing a well-turned calf,
Oh yeah.
an intensely regulated
yeah.
thermostat,
Ooh.
a succulent grilled hot dog with browned edges. Bob, does the revving engine of a minivan rev your engine?
Vroom vroom, baby.
The sooner you isolate which flavors of fatherhood forces your fluids to flow, the sooner you can find your inner kink peace. Sincerely, a friendly Mang. And that was sent by our good friend,
Come with me.
friend Matt. Oh God, yes.
Thanks, Matt.
That's man. I don't have the PhD to go after this comment. That's all on you, Bob.
I feel like Matt may have misunderstood the daddy kink scenario in which I would play the titular daddy.
Oh,
I have a daddy kink. Oh,
is
yeah.
that your role, Bob?
But I mean, I can appreciate a nice toy mustache.
Man,
I'm down with some mailman calves, with some shorty shorts and a nice minivan with the oil freshly changed,
Have you guys? I don't know which of you guys, or if either, have watched Malcolm in the Middle growing up or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Have you watched that? There is the greatest episode where they go to fucking Burning Man, and everybody there sees Hal trying to grill next to an RV and acting like ultra dad, and they think it's like a performance piece of him being ironically being an American male father. It is the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen. And I think that's what you want to be, Bob. That's who you want to be, is Hal.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I don't want an RV, but I'll grill some meats.
Dude, if you can't appreciate a
Not yet,
nicely
Bob.
grilled dog, what the fuck's your problem, man?
Give it a
What the fuck
Even
is
if
your
I'll
problem?
give you a veggie dog. I don't give a shit, but you got to get that dog, bro.
Bob, after you
Get
finish
that
the
dog.
tiki bar, you'll start wanting that RV. I know it. I know.
No.
That's the next project.
Look,
Not
Rob's never
me.
going to be able to afford an RV. He couldn't afford a jet ski. How's he going to get an RV?
That's right. I gotta blow my RV money on these blues,
Dude,
dude.
you could fill that RV with blues, Bob. Think
It'd
about
just be
that.
a rolling movie theater, really.
Yeah, a rolling blockbuster.
Dude, I don't know, man.
Oh boy.
Might be time to save another life.
Oh boy.
I can confirm that this weekend in Spooky Empire, Bob did buy a total of 69 Blu-rays.
Incorrect.
Oh, yeah.
It cost thousands of dollars.
Oh, my God. RV money down the tubes.
So it's not going to be that impressive. I only bought 2 titles over the weekend because our main the biggest booths that we usually buy from just weren't there. I think probably because of COVID. Everybody at the con was like wearing masks and it seemed like people were doing the best they could. But yeah, so I don't have a massive stack like I did last time we did the Spooky Roundup. Sorry to disappoint y'all.
So RV then, yes?
Yeah, I'm just gonna go buy an RV. Fuck it. I gotta do one or the other.
This here's an RV.
That's a recreational vehicle. Looks so great in the driveway.
Damn straight.
Oh
boy.
That's it. Thanks
This is
for
petering
writing.
out.
Yeah, thanks for writing. Thanks for calling. Next week, we're going to be back with a brand new show. As always, we're going to be talking about Killer Clowns from Outer Space. It was the poll pick winner. Slam your eyeballs into that. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at STR8_chilling, on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. Don't forget about our Joe Bob live watch party. If you'd like to join in on our Slack channel community, just hit us up in one of those social media outlets, and I'll send you a link so you can join in on the daily conversations. Until next time, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.